Geek Buddy fans, what's up? It's welcome to a brand new episode this morning, at least on a Friday morning on the West Coast here of the
Geek Buddies.
Hey! We're back at it this morning, having some fun, getting into. You can tell by the closed eyes I have right now. I had a very long night of sleep. My two cohorts here have coffee in hand, ready to go. I've got my iced tea. That's how I roll. I'm ready to go as well. We got a lot to get into to start off your weekend. We've been enjoying doing these kind of Friday live shows, and certainly we got a lot to get into today. We're talking about a bunch of trailers that dropped this week, some big entertainment news, especially connected to HBOMax, and our big topic will be a spoiler review of the most recent episode of The Mandalorian. So we're going to get into all of that. But first, let's introduce ourselves. I am the Outlaw John Rocha, writer, producer, and host here on the Geek Buddies.
I am Michael Vogel. I'm a writer and producer of animated TV shows and movies, and I am highly caffeinated right now.
And this is Shannon McClung. I'm an animation writer and a television actor where I'm not quite as caffeinated as Vogel yet. And it really seems, based off that introduction, I'm nowhere near as caffeinated as Johnny.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I was up this morning watching a documentary on A&E on Dusty Rhodes, The American Dream. So it got me all woken up into the pro wrestling mode. So I'm in that place. Before we move on, I want to give a little shout out to a friend of mine. Aaron Wilhelm has a company that he has started. He has sent me a couple of free shirts. He's sending Shannon a shirt. Michael declined politely, but because he's probably got a million shirts in that closet of his. But Aaron Wilhelm started a new company. He is designing shirts. For those of you who remember him from the Schmodown, he did the videos and the packages for the first 2 or 3 years of the Schmodown, and he's got great shirts like this, Gung Gunga Lunga, which is awesome Geek Buddy stuff or geek nerdy stuff that is there for y'all to take a look at. Raiders of the Lost Ark, all kinds of different stuff. He's got new designs every week. And you want to go to his website, which is vawdesigns.com. Take a look at some shirts. I get no percentage. He sent me some shirts. He's an old friend. I thought I'd give him a shout out on our show. So if you all want to get some new shirts, some new designs, maybe some new gifts for anybody you got coming up over the next few months, head on over there and take a look. They do hoodies as well, and ring shirts as well. So they all kinds of designs there from Aaron Wilhelm, a great friend and a guy that I really just respect a lot. So just want to give him a shout out. So, all right. Anyway, for those of you who are new to the show, this is how it works. We each bring up a geek news item, talk about it amongst ourselves, then jump into our main topic. And as we said, our main topic is The Mandalorian, episode 7 from season 3. Which we're going to get into, Two Spies. So, but first, let's start off. I want to get you all's thoughts on this Max story. And as we start this, remember the Streamlabs and SuperChats are opened. I see some SuperChats already coming through. Send in the Streamlabs. The address is pinned in the chat there for you all. So send it in when you can. Any of your semblance of support for us would be great. But Mike and Shannon, Warner Brothers had a massive presentation a few days ago. They have announced that they're changing HBOMax to Max. They've got 3 tiers that they're going to be offering on May 23rd is when this all is happening. There's going to be an ad tier, an ad-free tier, and an ultimate ad tier, which I imagine you'll be watching through your eyes while you're asleep. That's the ultimate part of it all. But so much was announced here, so many trailers, so many new shows, and apparently a sea change for where they're going. But then the next day, the stocks absolutely dropped after this announcement as opposed to going up. So, Michael, you've been in the boardrooms, you've been behind the scenes, you're an executive, been an executive in these companies, corporations. What are your thoughts about how all this was presented, the faithful adaptation of the Harry Potter books, all these things that were presented here? What's your overall analysis coming away from it a few days later?
Max sounds very aggressive. That's my overall thoughts. It's so aggressive, oh, you want to go Netflix, you want to go Hulu, a little Disney Plus, Max. Like it's just very, it's a very aggressive name. HBO Max, I kind of got. Max by itself just seems, it's aggressive. I don't know. It's all like everything Warner Brothers is just so up in the air.
Yeah.
And it's like they're making the most of what they got, I guess. But like this, okay, well, like just going down the line, I know we're going to discuss the Penguin trailer, but like Penguin looks great. So you have this great show that is a DC show that's that's a spinoff of one of your big movies, but it's one of your big movies that's not really a part of the DC universe that's James Gunn and everybody are building. So it's still just its own Elseworlds kind of pocket over here. So you're like, it's cool. We're all excited about it. We're all going to talk about how much we like the trailer, but it doesn't feel like streamlined, like we all ships are pointing in the same direction. And then the Harry Potter stuff is, I don't know. I mean, taking J.K. Rowling aside, like if you just don't want to give J.K. Rowling money anymore, I get it. I respect it. Don't watch any Harry Potter stuff because she's attached to it all until she's no longer with us. So there's that issue that they are just going to continually have no matter what. But even if you are someone who's like, I don't really dig on J.K. Rowling, or I like J.K. Rowling or whatever, but I like the Harry Potter universe. Yeah. Deciding to recast and retell stories that are already movies on your channel that are already largely beloved. Yeah. Like you already kind of nailed the cast one time, but you're going to do it again. I get it. I've read the books. I know that there's tons of stuff that didn't make it into the movies. I know that there's stuff in the movies that probably could be told a little bit better. Sure. If you have like a 10 episode season. Like I get all the reasons why if you're a hardcore Harry Potter fan, you could see the bigger, longer, potentially better version. But is that really what people want? I don't know. So I think they think this is the safe bet. I think particularly after the Fantastic Beasts movies. I think the lesson they took from that was, ooh, let's just go back to the main stories, which is not the lesson. It was just like, don't tell crappy movies. I think there's other stories you could tell. I think seeing the success of Hogwarts Legacy in video games proves that you can tell a Harry Potter story that people will get into, even if it's not the main story. But I think they think they're making a safe bet. I think it's kind of a gamble. It could go either way. Okay. Yeah, and look, they've got really good stuff. They've got some nice stuff on the channel, but the channel still feels like it's trying to find itself. And I think that's where, you know, all these announcements came out. They trotted out a bunch of trailers. They said some stuff, but I think that the reason the stock went down is the overall response from people was, okay. Yeah. You know, like you think about how we are when Disney comes out and says, hey, here's what's coming on Disney Plus in the next year. And we get a bunch of trailers and we're like, oh shit, we're excited. Or when Netflix has those trailers, it's like, we're doing a movie every week and here's all our stuff. Like, regardless of whether or not those things end up being good, I think they have a better way of sort of trotting it out with a little bit of swagger, a little bit of confidence. And the HBO Max announcements were kind of like, okay, let's see. Yeah.
Right. It's interesting. I mean, you look at what's going on with Prime Video, Shannon. I mean, Prime Video also kind of ramping up their production, doing a new version of the Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power, but you're setting it way in the past here, not rebooting the Lord of the Rings movies, but just setting it in an earlier time, earlier age, to use their terminology. Also bringing in the NFL, which now has gone to YouTube TV. So you see that WB, I mean, if you go on from the beginning, HBO Max has already had these hubs, Cartoon Network, TCM, these DC, these other hubs that they've had. So they're now going to incorporate all the stuff from Discovery Plus, all their, build a house or cook this food or whatever, decorate your place, so combined with the content. And they're going to fold in sports eventually, and they're going to fold in children's programming. And so it almost seems like something that I got told for a year from a friend of mine who was like, dude, your channel either needs to be entertainment or sports or pro wrestling. It can't be everything. And I eventually took the advice and made it more of a streamlined channel. I mean, that is yes.
Outlaw Max.
Yeah, Outlaw Max is possible.
Outlaw Max.
I mean, yeah, but you look at this and you go, okay, I get why you go with Max, but Cinemax is what it's connected to, and that has never been the bigger brand name over HBO. So, Shannon, do you think this is eventually going to be a good idea, or do you think this is kind of dead in the water and further dysfunction from WB?
I mean, where we're sitting at this moment, it seems like in a few years they might undergo a whole other reboot. You know what? We're gonna split it up. We're gonna split it up because my wife likes her Discovery Plus subscription.
Right.
I have never turned that thing on, and the HBO Max Discovery. combination. To me, I mean, I'd be very curious to hear what the HBO executives think of all this, because they're known as sort of a premium brand. I mean, it's not TV, it's HBO. I mean, it seems like you're kind of sullying one of your brands a little bit. And I don't know. I don't see, and again, I'm not an executive. I'm not a finance guy. Like, I don't know what you get taking two independent streamers and making them one. I don't know what that actually gets you. Maybe fiscally it makes sense. I think combining two streams of revenue into one doesn't seem like the best idea. But again, I'm a neophyte when it comes to that stuff. In terms of dropping the HBO, I mean, again, as you said, John, HBOMax came from HBO Cinemax. Like, that was that was the combination. That's where the Max came from. So dropping the thing that I think most people actively seek out, which is HBO, that seems like a gigantic error. But at this point, the current regime and a lot of their decisions, maybe to the stockholders, it makes sense that they're slashing budgets left and right and saving some money. But to a consumer, it's like, it seems like you've made bad decision after bad decision. And going to the Harry Potter angle, rebooting something that the majority of your audience grew up with doesn't seem like the strongest idea. Now, I would have to imagine that to tell stories in the world of Harry Potter, at this point, you won't be able to without J.K. Rowling. And her personal stuff aside, she's kind of proven with her murder mystery books and the Fantastic Beasts series, not all of her ideas click. And sometimes something that can be really beneficial when you're in a writer's room is having the input of other people. And now, granted, Steve Kloves, he was the screenwriter who adapted most of the novels for the films. Having other people contributing ideas can be a good thing, especially when your story has come from one person and maybe they're kind of running out of narrative energy at this point. That's such a tremendous world that she built that you would have to think there's other stories you can tell here. Now, did the Grindelwald story work out? No. That doesn't mean that the brand is dead in the water and you have to go back and reboot the thing that what originally got the whole thing started. I mean, I think Aisha Kenya in the chat already said, like, finding out, the origins of the houses. I'm like, that's an interesting story. That would be something that, you have knowledge of those houses from the movies. Like, let's explore this. I know people are talking about like a young Snape series, like the Marauders. Like, there's places to go. Why they're choosing to do this, it to me, it seems like a bad idea. Now, some of the trailers they released, some of them look great. I mean, some we're not going to have time to talk about, but like the new True Detective, like, hey, that looks cool. The new Kate Winslet series, Regime, I'm like, hey, that looks cool. But overall, I remember when HBOMax was first announced, and I want to say that their ads came after Disney Plus, and like Disney Plus, you've got a poster of Iron Man with R2D2, with Buzz and Woody. Those are tough brands to compete with. HBOMax had a lot. I mean, you've got Batman up there. You've got Wonder Woman. You've got Sheldon from The Big Bang Theory. You have all this stuff. But as Vogel already pointed out, their announcement yesterday, it just seems like there's just sort of a lack of energy and enthusiasm behind it.
Yeah, he even wore a windbreaker under a suit jacket, Michael. So,
hey, it's chilly at the top, Johnny.
Hey, that's not okay. It's not okay. I do want to just going back to what you guys were saying, and again, I think, like I said, we're gonna get to the Penguin as far as the geekiest stuff and some of the trailers, but on the Harry Potter front, like, it really is accurate. I talked to a friend of mine. In addition to the fact that the Fantastic Beasts movies are not the best executed as far as story, I talked to a friend of mine who works in consumer products, and he pointed out something that I didn't think of, but he kind of nailed it, I think, is he was like, what is it that people love about the Harry Potter franchise? Kids in school on brooms. What is Fantastic Beasts? Adults running around America. And you saw them kind of trying, let's go back to Hogwarts for a little bit in the last movie. But I think that when you think of all the things that I think in addition to one of the many mistakes they made with the Fantastic Beasts movies is it's not kids. They're not learning spells.
Right.
And they're not flying around on brooms. Like, it's all the things that we like about Harry Potter, the houses, the this or that. So really, to Shannon's point, to what you guys are saying, like, doing a story about Godric Gryffindor, Salazar Slytherin, Rowena Ravenclaw, and Helga Hufflepuff, great. Doing a story about Snape, James, Lily, Lupin, Sirius, all of them when they were students at Hogwarts, and all the shit that went down as Voldemort was on the rise and how they all formed Dumbledore's army, great. Adapting Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, casting the kids from the movie as the adults, and letting that spin off into a brand new series about Albus and Severus and all the new kids at Hogwarts, great. So, like, those are 3 solid ideas that if you still are into supporting Harry Potter, as a Harry Potter fan, you would be very on board with those 3 stories, and you would get, and had they come out and announced any of those, I think you'd be having a lot of people. We'd still have the J.K. Rowling discussion. Do you want to support it? Do you not? But if you are someone who still wants to support Harry Potter, I think those things would really excite you. But to Shannon's point, if you grew up loving the Harry Potter movies, you're like, do I really want to see someone that's not Daniel Radcliffe and someone that's not Rupert Grint and someone that's not Emma Watson? Like, do I really think that these new kids that they're going to find for this TV series are going to be able to go to toe to toe? And forget them, like even the professors at Hogwarts, where you cast basically British royalty in almost every role. Like, are you really gonna trump those performances? So I think it's just, again, in the long list of things that we're talking about in the HBOMax journey of questionable decisions, we'll just chalk this one up into another, okay.
All right, you gentlemen have had your say, so I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say this. I think the presentation was a bit awkward and clumsy. That I'll absolutely concede. I think saying it's going to be a more faithful adaptation were the wrong choice of words, because you, in essence, were slapping the movies that are still under your brand and still like designed to make you money. So I don't understand that approach in saying it that way. There was a better way to word that without offending the Harry Potter fandom. I'm not as precious as everyone else about the recasting of it all. I think how can I say this? I think it's not necessarily a smart move, but it's a safe, makes sense move. And this is what we're going to see from Zaslav. Just like he's rebooting the entire DCU in essence and keeping the things that worked beforehand as a way of kind of being on both sides of the fence. He's kind of doing the same thing here. I'm going to reboot this, restart it all over. We clearly can do great series television as we've shown with House of the Dragon, as we've shown with Last of Us, a number of series. We've got great creators who want to be a part of this. But they make this announcement without a writer, without a showrunner, without a cast, without anything. So to me, that's where you put the cart before the horse. You got to announce it all together so that fans can get somewhat excited about who you've picked or who you've chosen to lead or what their track record is or what their resume is. Just announcing it as an ethereal thing, I think, was the mistake. Now, I don't have a problem with them rebooting the movies. The movies weren't all that great. Let's be honest, okay? There's 8 of them, and there's like maybe 4 that are good, and the rest are palatable that you can convince yourself that they're good. I think people are getting too caught up in their nostalgia about these movies, so they're not as precious or recastable or unrecastable as people think. Now, what Aisha also said, 10 to 15 years, that's probably smart. Waiting a little bit longer to do it. This is a little bit on top. But look, he did this with DC, right? He went ahead and just said, fuck it. Everybody's dead. We're starting all over. Yeah, what? So it's not like he hasn't had a pattern of doing this. We're not going to know if it works out for a few more years, right? We're not going to know if this makes any sense until we hear more about it. So look, I appreciate that he's going back to the safe stuff. This is what studios do. All of us in our bubble may have an issue, but new generations who are coming up may not gravitate to Daniel Radcliffe and Emma Watson and Rupert Grint. they may gravitate to this new cast and be all up in this new version of Harry Potter and really enjoy it. And I think he's opening the door to the possibility. Do I think it's a smart move? I think only time will tell if it's a smart move. Because if it comes out and these are banger adaptations, then all that criticism is going to die away. And if you really enjoy the new interpretations and the way they flesh out and maybe even update some storylines, some stuff, I've heard, they're talking about a Black Hermione, you're opening the door to that possibility. There are things to explore here that you can adjust. Will there be traditionalists that get upset about it? Of course there will be, but I think it's a smart gamble to take, but whether it's going to work out, we'll see. But I mean, they're clearly leaning into their IP, going back to the Big Bang Theory going to the Gremlins going to these wells that they know well that they're going to come back into.
I don't know if we call it the Gremlins well.
I'm just throwing it out. I'm adding to it, but yeah, I mean, they're trying to kind of resurrect some of their IP, which is what he said he was going to do from the beginning. So it's not like it's like he's taking a swing out of nowhere. It's been a consistent pattern, Zaslav has said. So, do I think it was an inspiring presentation? No, I think there's a lot to be said for how you present these things. Look at Feige. And there's a way to kind of get people excited about these things. And clearly they didn't, because the stock dropped 7% the next day. And that's not what you want after announcement. You want people to be very excited and the stock prices to go up. So it's more about the execution, I think, where they dropped the ball here. And the Max thing, I think, is a real issue. I really do, because HBO is the brand. And to kind of left-hand compliment HBO by saying, well, people think TV with HBO. And it's like, that's not even the fucking saying. It's more than, it's not just TV, it's HBO. So it doesn't make sense. You're kind of slapping your brands, which I don't understand at all in any way, shape, or form, because HBO is the thing that's kind of really been the consistent producer of great content. Even when the studio was falling apart or not doing great content, HBO was almost always being lauded, from The Wire to The Sopranos to Sex and the City to 6 Feet Under to the stuff, the House of the Dragon, Game of Thrones. It's always, what we got now, Last of Us, it's always been lauded. So it just seems odd to bury HBO in the branding and make it just another hub. I just think that's such a massive mistake. So those are my 2 cents on it. So, because I love HBO, fuck Cinemax. I stopped watching that after I turned 18. Let's anything more to say on this before we move on? So I want to hit some of these.
I'm still stuck on your opinion of the Harry Potter movies, but maybe we save that for another day. I mean, look.
The first 2 are, I can't do Goblet of Fire. It's ridiculous. My boy. And
by the way, okay, Goblet of Fire is ridiculous, but Cedric's dad gives the most overact, like, my boy! Ooh, like it literally, I will say this. I don't think every Harry Potter movie is perfect. Shannon can knock the action in the back half of the movies. You could talk about how the Christopher Columbus movies are really young, but when you have a beloved book series that is coming out while the movies are also coming out, the fact that they cast as well as they did, and that those movies,
you're so right. You're very
like just from it, and I will say this on the business side of it, regardless of your opinion of the quality of the movies, like some people love the movies, some people don't like the movies, that's fine. You have movies that are on your channel or on your streaming service that people are growing up with. I still know people at our age who are having kids who are reading the Harry Potter books with their kids, and when they finish a book, they go to HBOMax and they watch that movie. Right. And so in addition to that, if you go ride a theme park ride in Orlando or in Hollywood, it's Daniel Radcliffe, Rupert Grint, and Emma Watson on that ride. Right. So you still have this sort of ecosystem of the Harry Potter universe, and making this decision, while it might not be the worst decision, you're not wrong that a new generation could attract those kids. I think more diverse casting could be really great. There's a lot of things that could work, but I do think that from a business perspective, building out the franchise you've already got around you might not be the worst idea. So, but we'll see. Time will tell.
I feel like, but they had no other option. Like Emma Watson made it very clear she was never going to come back if J.K. Rowling was involved. I think you could have convinced Radcliffe. But Watson, I mean, Grint was in, but Radcliffe was.
Grint's like, where, what time do I show up?
I'm tired of working for M. Night Shyamalan, for God's sake. Put me in the damn thing. But yeah, I mean, no offense to Ruby. He's a fantastic actor. But like, I think with Emma, you weren't breaking that wall. Emma is such a strong defender of the trans community.
I think that is true.
Right?
I think that is
she
true.
was the reason that Chris Chow wasn't going to happen. And she was the reason that if they were going to redo a series, which basically that's what they wanted to do, she was the reason they weren't going to come back. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I honor and respect her stance 100%. And I think she's got a right to make it. Anybody who thinks she doesn't can go fuck off. Because I think she's great to say, like, I'm not going to do it. There's a principled stand. And so WB had no other choice. Never mind. They could have gone to other stories, as you mentioned, Michael.
Yeah, I mean, they did.
They wanted to go down that road. Yeah.
I think it's such a rich world that there are Cursed Child and whether or not that could. I mean, it would be up. It would be up for debate whether or not that could spin off into a new series of stories.
Yeah.
That was not going to be the cure all for the brand.
Right.
I mean, like going into the past, I mean, it's such a rich world that was created that there were plenty of stories there. So I think, going back where you have, the established characters. And again, as Vogel said, recasting the kids, could you do it? Probably. The teachers, that's going to be harder because you're getting kind of, the all-stars of British acting.
It's going to be harder because there aren't that many British actors who have come on over the last few years who have the same kind of status, right? You could go Tom Hiddleston, you could go Benedict Cumberbatch, there are a number of British actors you can go towards, but do they all necessarily want to be a part of it? And will they all necessarily? I mean, a Benedict Cumberbatch Snape would be fantastic to see, but are they going to be a part of this? That's the question. So I think you can recast. I think it's Michael. I think made a greater.
I want Tom Hiddleston as Dumbledore.
Oh yeah, right. That's good.
Put a little beard on him. Put a little beard on him. He'll be cute.
Michael, what you said earlier, going back in time, this is how these other brands have kind of left their main stuff alone. Lord of the Rings of Power. The Mangold movie is going to be the beginning of the Jedi. So it's just the smarter move to go back in time to kind of talk about the foundational pieces of a mythology or a IP or franchise. That makes more sense. So I do concede that point for sure. Yeah. All right. There we go. All right. Let's hit some of these super chats real quick before we jump.
Akio super chats.
Let's do it. Eric Solo says, I'm happy Daddy Pascal is back for Mando season 4. Oh, unhappy Daddy Pascal is. I don't know.
He's happy.
Is I happy? Okay.
I happy. I think he has another one after this.
Okay. I hope Daddy. I hope Daddy Pascal comes back for Mando season 4.
I hope Daddy Pascal comes back because I just like looking at Daddy Pascal.
In
the Mandalorian, you're looking at a helmet.
Yeah. I like to pretend what the faces. I pretend when I watch Mandalorian that he's looking right at me under that mask every week. I do hope. I mean, look, I do wonder that. I know there's been a lot of talk about him kind of not wanting to do it anymore, not wanting to be without his mask, whatever. I think that I wonder if the announcement of the movie and the idea that there is this sort of bigger arc to what's going on, in addition to the fact that I think once we get past this season, Mandalorians can choose to take their helmets on or not because there's a lot more Mandalorians around. I wonder if that'll be. I know Jon Favreau has said that he's basically season 4 is written for Mandalorian.
Yeah.
Whether they keep Pedro or whatever happens, but like season 4 is written. And I feel like it's all going to work out because despite all of the issues that people are having with this season of Mandalorian, which we will talk about in our spoiler review, at least based on the penultimate episode of this season, I feel like we're going to end on a stronger note.
Okay. All right. Lord of Darkness up in here saying, hey, what's up, y'all? I love the Mando episode and pumped for Daisy Ridley's return and that Marvel's trailer. Oh, my God. Yeah. We're going to talk about the Mando episode a little bit later. We did talk about Daisy Ridley's return last week, and we will talk about the Marvel's trailer in a little bit. But guys, any new thoughts on Daisy Ridley returning? Any other feelings about it? There was a little more fleshing out. She's not. Apparently, the rumors are that she's not going to be the lead, but she's going to be like Luke or Han, like training the new lead who will take over. And this is the beginning of a new trilogy. It just won't be connected to the other 2 films that are coming out that they announced. Any thoughts on that?
It's basically what we said. I don't ultimately feel like the new trilogy taken as a whole works.
Yeah.
Mainly Rise of Skywalker kind of Like it's just not. It just doesn't all work. But I like the characters. Like I like Daisy Ridley. I like Rey. So I'm curious to see her character in better hands. Hopefully.
Yeah, fair point. Shannon, any thoughts?
Yeah, agreed. I mean, again, Star Wars history of announcing movies and them never coming to the screens. I'm still kind of like
I think these three are happening.
These feel like
you
a
know
lot.
what?
Yeah.
It sure seemed like that when Rogue Squadron was announced.
That's for sure. That's 100%.
I don't think there's a key difference. I mean, when aside from Patty Jenkins looking really nice in her aviator jacket and talking about how much she loves flying, none of us had any idea what Rogue Squadron was or how it tied into anything.
True.
Like there was no, is this set in this time period? Is this the New Republic? Is this after? Like there was no context. And these three movies that were announced have such a clear, this is where they're placed. This is what they're about. This is what's happening. And that all by itself makes me feel like they've got more confidence in what they're doing. They've figured out a plan.
Okay.
I mean, it could be.
Yeah. Lord of Darkness says, and finally, as a kid of the 90s, the Harry Potter thing and Lord of the Rings stuff is tricky for me to get over in my head mentally. Yeah, I could see that. But
yeah.
You know.
I think
it's true.
Like
Time
Rings of
marches
Power,
on.
to me, that's so its own thing.
Yeah.
I mean, because it's not, I mean, it clearly takes place within the same world, but it's so separated by time.
Yeah.
But Harry Potter, man, I do agree. Like with your standard moviegoer, it's like he's right there. Like that's who Harry Potter is. Like I do think there will be a little bit of a one. Doing it as a series, that is a much more significant commitment for people. So it'll be interesting to see whether the Harry Potter faithful and your regular viewers tune in.
you're gonna get the season 7 of that show, and Harry Potter's gonna be 95 years old. He's gonna look like high school kids did back in the 80s and 90s on TV. Like you go back and watch Footloose right now from the 80s. Every single one of those high school students looks like they were 80 years old.
That's not Harry. That's Harry. That's Harris. That's Harris Potter.
That's Harris. That's Harris Potter.
Harris, we need you. Accio. It's
Sounds
being
good.
played by Brian Cox. Brian Cox playing Harris Potter. Accio, fuck off. Iraq says HBOMax sounds like a constellation of problems. Are they buying time to sell WB again? Love G.
By the way, not no.
I hope not, dude.
Not no. Sometimes it does feel like they're just like, let's just like move some chips around, consolidate some stuff so that we can offload it to the next guy. We'll see.
Maybe, man. That's unsettling when you think about it, because they're operating at a whole nother level of they don't care. They don't really care, a lot of these people, about like our feelings about it. Jay West says, how big are your expectations for the Acolyte and Mangold's Force film? Toxic fans are already calling these films trash before they are even made. Well,
Man,
go ahead, Mike. Go ahead.
toxic fan. Guys, listen, for everybody listening right now, whether you're listening live or you're listening to us later, like, can everybody just go out in the universe and be a better fan? Like, can we just shut the toxic fans down at some point? Like, it's so bad, and it makes creators not enjoy what they're doing. And it's just wait for something to come out. If you don't like it, don't like it. That's cool. But can we all just calm down? Like, the level of what we know about Acolyte and the level of what we know about Mangold's Force film particularly, like, there's so little known, and like, let's just give people a shot to tell a great story. Yeah.
Why go after Mangold? He has such a great track record. I don't understand how anybody can like have anything negative to say about what Mangold might be doing with Star. I'm excited, especially if you like the Andor approach. Mangold is kind of connected to that kind of approach, so I could see that. And I just started Single Drunk Female, the second season, which is also executive produced by Lizzie Headland, and she's a great, intelligent EP and showrunner. So to me, that bodes so well for the Acolyte. So I don't understand why people would be upset about this. I really don't.
I mean, look,
except they're getting 600,000 views per negative video that they make. That's
they're getting 600,000 views for negative, and like, this is true of all fandom, but particularly in Star Wars.
Yeah.
If you see an announcement and there is a female or a person of color behind the camera, and the main character is a female or a person of color, you have a bunch of people freaking out and saying, "Oh, they're trying to change everything about Star Wars," and you're like, "Hey guys, there are a lot of women and people of color who have liked Star Wars for their entire lives and had to deal with white Luke, white Han, white Leia. And if there's going to be some people of different ethnicities, females, sexual orientations, whatever, then it's time for y'all to get on board and enjoy them too. We can all enjoy each other's journey in a galaxy far, far away."
Just like in the real fucking world. Hello. Christina B says, "I'm not believing new Star Wars is coming out until a trailer. I still believe that the Acolyte is a fake show."
Like they're just pretending. It's like this is like the Star Wars version of the moon landing.
Christina, there were pictures on set.
Everybody has a camera on their phone, John. Anybody can do that.
Oh my God, that's hilarious. I love that, Christina. That is so great. It's a fake show. Fake show. Vincent Zawada says, "Nation, the place to watch the Geek Buddies." LOL. I don't know what that means, but okay. Yeah, Nation.
Outlaw Nation is the place to watch the Geek Buddies.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
HBOMax.
Hey, that's aggression on aggression.
Rocha Max. You know what we don't need? You know what we don't need? Rocha Max.
That's standard Rocha. There's no Rocha mid.
That's true. There's either Asleep or Rocha Max. Michael, I got to get your thoughts on this. I know this is off topic. What did you think of Bowen Yang's Jafar from SNL this weekend? That was
Bowen Yang's Jafar. He nailed the way that Jafar says "boy." Like, and he was like, "Oh, Ron DeSantis, the boy." I was glad that somebody finally said out loud that Jafar is clearly a homosexual.
I could not.
Jafar
Mind completely changed after he
Jafar
said that.
is so gay. Jafar Scar, like Disney villains are
Great stuff.
Disney villains probably have their own bar somewhere on the Disney lot. That's all I'm saying. Drag shows at the Disney villain bar. No, it was great. He was really funny.
Yeah, I thought so too. He's like, when I became this swole dude with a goatee, I lost my shit, man. All right, let's take a break. We got more Streamlabs Super Chats, but we got to get to these trailers because we only have limited amount of time with everybody today. So let's take a quick break, and then we are going to jump into these massive trailers that dropped this week and have a fun conversation about all of them right after this.
And some you can watch on TV. So we got trailers. And trailers? There's a lot. So, talking about everything that's going on with Max, we got some very, very interesting trailers from them. The first one that we're going to start off with, one that has me super, super excited, an in-production trailer from The Penguin. Coming out in 2024. The aftermath of what happened in the Batman. We see Oswald Cobblepot trying to make his way to the top of the criminal empires of Gotham City. Going back to Colin Farrell being cast as Oswald Cobblepot, it was like, I'm not sure. What's it going to be? And seeing how they basically took kind of almost like a Tony Soprano approach to him and seeing how that's kind of the world that the show's going to live in. I thought this trailer was fantastic. They're really kind of stacking up a really impressive supporting cast with Kristen Milioti. This trailer has me super, super excited. I'm so bummed that we have to wait at least another 8 or 9 months to 2024 to get to this show. But gentlemen, I'll throw it over to you. We'll start with Johnny first. What did you think of our first look at The Penguin?
Oh yeah, I really liked it. I know we only got 1 minute and 10 seconds, and some of it was like conversations about what they're doing here, but it feels very ground-based, gritty type. I mean, this felt very similar to The Sopranos or Breaking Bad. This is what we're seeing. It's picking up right after the Batman. There's a power vacuum here. That's HBOMax right there. There's a power vacuum here, and how is he going to fill it? And I like that it's going to challenge. I mean, that young black kid coming in, and is he going to be the window that we see the Penguin through, that's going to maybe humanize the Penguin a little bit. So offer a 3-dimensional character approach to this guy. There are going to be moments we don't like what he does, but then there are going to be moments where we actually cheer for him in a situation. And certainly there was elements of that already in the Batman with Colin Farrell's portrayal. So to leaning even more into that, both the brutality and the humanity of this guy, I think looks exciting and it looks fun, and it keeps that vibe of the overall darkness and noir and grittiness of the Matt Reeves Batman. So I'm 100% down, and Colin's going to kill this thing over 8 episodes for sure.
Mikey?
Couple things. One, I've heard from people at Warner Brothers that this is great. I've heard the scripts are great. I've heard the footage you're seeing is great. Like, just getting like, I've not heard from anyone that like, oh, we'll see. It's kind of weird. I don't know. Like just everyone's like, holy shit, this is way better than I ever thought it would be. So like that's encouraging. I love that we sort of see Gotham underwater. So like contextually we get like, we're picking things up right after the movie, this giant flood that regardless of whether we think the flood in the 3rd act of the Batman was the best idea or not, like this is what happened. Yeah. And then this is where Oswald Cobblepot is making his move. It looks awesome. And it made me realize, like, I think the best thing that ever happened for the Penguin was Bruce Timm putting him in the Iceberg Lounge in the 90s Batman and kind of moving Penguin from just being a weird villain who had an umbrella fetish to being this sort of organized crime boss kind of doing his thing, because this is where the Penguin belongs. Yeah. And this is what makes him interesting, and kind of taking it to the next level and taking this idea of the Penguin as this guy behind the scenes with all the organized crime and then making it feel grounded, making it feel real. It looks like an absolute blast. I'm really curious how much of a role Batman will or will not play in this. It seems like he's playing I don't think he's playing a big role for sure. Yeah. But like, is this a thing where, we get to like however many episodes, say it's a 10 episode season, that the Penguin is making all his moves in episode 8, Arpats comes in, like it would be a really interesting thing to see how they play that. Cause I think whenever you do these Batman shows where you don't really have Batman, there's always just this giant like shadow of the bat that is kind of over everything. So because it's Matt Reeves, because it's tied so closely to the movie, I'm wondering about that. But I think however they do it, from everything I'm hearing, they're doing it great. So I'm super stoked.
Okay. Well, the Penguin is going to be coming out in 2024. I don't think we have any other date besides that. Just that it's going to be next year. So another Max trailer we got was Gremlin's Secret of the Mogwai. So this is one of those projects that I feel like was announced so long ago, and it's going to be coming out next month at the end of May. But this is essentially a prequel to the 1984's Gremlins. I mean, we have a very, very stacked cast with Ming-Na Wen, B.D. Wong, James Hong, Sandra Oh, Randall Park, George Takei, Bowen Yang, not playing Jafar. But we also get Zach Galligan, who I don't know if he's playing Billy, because the show I believe it's set in 1920s Shanghai. And just the adventures of I'm assuming young Gizmo. Who knew that Gizmo was about 70 when we watched Gremlins in 1984? But this is another show that, looking at Gremlins as a brand, is like, how else can we do this? Taking it back in the past like this seems like such an inspired idea from executive producer Steven Spielberg and Z Chun, who is a writer. He worked on Gotham. Really, really active guy on Twitter. Very, very funny on Twitter. I think this show looks delightful. But gentlemen, what do you think? We'll throw it over to Mikey first. What do you think?
I love Gremlins. I love the first Gremlins movie. It scared the shit out of me when I was a kid. I almost had to leave the theater until they all started singing Hi-Ho, and then I was down and I was in, and it was great. I love Gremlins 2 because it's fucking bonkers. I love the Key and Peele sketch about Gremlins 2 because it underscores how bonkers Gremlins 2 is. I just love Gremlins. I agree with Shannon. I think this is such a great way to sort of extend the Gremlins universe into a really fun way. And it's a great way to tell a story that is just so perfectly suited for animation. I believe that the young boy in the series is the old guy who we meet at the beginning of the first Gremlins movie. So like this is him as a kid and how he came to find Gizmo. So I do think Billy might be there in some kind of like, you know, maybe the show starts with like modern day and then there's a flashback. Like, I don't know, but I kind of think if you're bringing him in, he's probably playing Billy. But yeah, and I think that, you know, even looking at the trailer, like they just got everything right. Okay, you get him wet. We're going to get gremlins. We're going to have a lot of silly gremlin action, but we're going to have a lot more Mogwais. We're going to have like a big threat of someone who wants to use the Mogwai for evil. We've got other big giant creatures in addition to Mogwais and gremlins. Like it just looks really big. The animation style is really cool. It just looks like a ton of fun. So I would love for this show to come out and sort of re-spark some interest in the brand, because I'm going to tell you right now, if we could get another live action Gremlins movie, I am 1000% down.
Yeah, I mean, the animation style is fun and accessible and different. It is childlike, but still, you know, available to adults to enjoy. And this is such a great time for Asian actors and Asian actresses to be part of so many different projects. And I think it's so smart for Dante and Spielberg and the people involved in this to understand that the Asian angle is the way to take on this because of how the Gremlins were first presented to us in the first movie. Yeah. Let's explore that. Like we spoke about earlier, going back in time with these franchises is the smart move almost always, because you get prequel trilogy notwithstanding, but almost always you can go back and like explore.
Do you want to have a bunch of people on this thing yell at you about the prequel trilogy right now?
I'm allowed to my opinion. You all are allowed to love the prequel trilogy. I'm allowed to, but you can, Mr. DC over here, Mr. Zack Snyder over here. But anyway, you go.
I love DC. I just don't love Zack Snyder.
Back in time to explore this. So I like it. Plus, the voiceover work is really sweet here. It's going to walk that line between some really harrowing stuff, not too harrowing, but certainly enough to kind of raise the stakes, and how they resolve all this. And so overall, I thought it was a very interesting. And listen, I had no interest in this. And then I saw the trailer and I was like, oh, you know what? This might be kind of fun to explore and see what we're going to get. And Gremlins 2 is great for Hulk Hogan. Say, what the hell's going on in the screen, brother? So yeah,
Gremlins 2 is great because the female gremlin looks like Willem Dafoe in drag.
Holy God. All right. Fair point.
If you had that on your bingo card, good on you. So Max's first day when HBO Max and Discovery merge, Max's first day, May 23rd, is when we will get our first look at Gremlins Secrets of the Mogwai. Yeah. So going on to another streamer, I would say HBO Max's or Max's competitor, but Disney Plus, we got a trailer for the second season of Star Wars Visions. So this one, you know, I did not necessarily connect with that first season very much, but it's the same situation where you have several different animation studios doing their take on a Star Wars story. The one that certainly looks interesting to me is Aardman, their stop motion. But yeah, I mean, looking at season 1, and there were a couple that I did like, but overall visually it just was not my style. Watching the trailer for this one, it's speaking my language a little bit more. So I'm actually looking forward to this. But yeah, and definitely the Aardman animation is the one that's standing out to me. So gentlemen, I'll throw it over to you. What did you think of our first look at the second season of Star Wars Visions? Johnny, take it away.
Oh, I loved it. I mean, I loved the first Star Wars Vision. So I'm such a big fan of expanding the brand in any way that you can and getting more voices and more points of views on Star Wars, because it is a global fucking brand. I think is always a smart move, to be honest. And so did they all hit it out of the park? Star Wars Visions, every one of those stories? No, I didn't like the rocker one, but overall, I know. Overall, I did like the stories. You know, I really enjoyed, because I also am a big fan of the Japanese culture, Japanese anime, Japanese animation. So to me, I loved that kind of approach here, that we saw those elements here. This got me even more excited. I think Star Wars took a chance on Star Wars Visions, saw the reaction. We're like, well, let's pump more money into this and let's get different studios from all these different countries to come in and do their style of animation and create their versions of Star Wars. And we got some incredible images and sequences in this trailer that blew me away. Yes, the Aardman stuff is such a smart, that's so old school Star Wars, and having a little mini Harrison Dula, mini Chewie, all that, or mini Wookiee, whatever it may be, all of that works so well for that. But then you've got these darker edges and darker Sith stuff that's explored. And I wonder if there's going to be any stuff that's in here that might connect up to any of the future movies that were announced at Star Wars Celebration. But overall, I came away from that trailer even more excited to see this thing. So yeah.
Mikey, what'd you think?
I loved Star Wars Visions. I thought, I just loved the variety, even if every single one didn't connect. I just thought like there was such like a wide swath of stories that were really, really interesting. I loved the rocker one. I thought it was absolutely hilarious. I was super down. I downloaded that song. I listened to it, rocked out at the gym. Into it.
All right.
Into it. Liked it in English and in Japanese. But yeah, no, I think what's really cool about it, I don't think any of the stories in Visions season 2 are going to link up to the movies, but I think that's like kind of what's kind of charming about Visions.
Yeah,
is that it just takes the basic core concepts of this universe. It takes good versus evil, the Force, Sith, Jedi, racing, like all of these pieces, and says, hey, don't worry about the timeline, don't worry about the continuity, just tell like a really cool story that hits the beats. And it kind of just allows for a level of freedom that a lot of brands don't have. And you just don't know what you're going to get. It's just this amazing grab bag. So I thought it blew me away. I'm also blown away that Shannon didn't like Vision season 1. So I'm blown away by that, but I'm not as blown away as I was by the trailer, but it's like this. It's like, makes me question Shannon a little bit.
Well, as Brian T. Brawler in the chat just said, Shannon uncultured. Got it.
Yeah.
Which legit made me laugh. So Vision Season 2 will be dropping on Disney Plus on Star Wars Day, May the 4th.
And by the way, even though we're not covering it, also on May the 4th, Young Jedi Academy comes out as well.
Yes.
And it's definitely, not for our age group, but it looks freaking adorable. So I'm just like throwing it up.
Is it for people that are young?
Yeah.
Like in the title?
Yes.
Oh, boy.
Listen, old man, old grumpy man.
The coffee is kicking in, boys.
I feel young. I feel hip. I feel with it. No, I just think it looks really, really cute, and it looks really, really fun. And so I will be watching Visions Season 2 and Young Jedi Academy. And grumpy old Shannon.
Come on, get it out.
Nope. That's
something that happens with age, viewers. You can't always get your words out. It's good that you're feeling young.
Wow. Should we trot out how you handled all those espresso martinis on your birthday?
hey, why you gotta go? Why you gotta put business in the street, man? All right, let's keep going. We're running out of time to jump into this Mandalorian, so let's keep going.
Sorry.
Okay. Let's go.
So sticking with Disney Plus and sticking of wanting to stay young, we get the second trailer for Peter Pan and Wendy. This is from director David Lowery from The Green Knight. We get a better look at Jude Law's Captain Hook.
Yeah,
really interesting. Really interesting take on the pirates on this, and I love his take thus far on Neverland. In the past, Neverland has been kind of like a larger than life place, whereas this, it looks real, it looks tangible, and I think that's something exciting that we haven't seen in a Peter Pan property before. But speaking of people that want to be young, Mikey, what did you think of our second trailer for Peter Pan and Wendy?
People that want to be young, you can get the fuck out. That's what I think.
Is that Tiger Balm on your?
If we don't get to everything in Mandalorian, it's not my fault. I'm just making it clear.
I'm really intrigued. I'm really intrigued by this. To your point, when it comes to Disney doing live action versions of any of their animated classics, I firmly believe that the more different it is, the better off they are. So the fact that this trailer doesn't feel like Jude Law's not trying to do animated Captain Hook. They're not trying to have like every single moment. The Lost Boys aren't all dressed in their like, animal onesies. So I feel like, whether or not this is ultimately successful, and I know some people have complained because Neverland has a little bit of that drab, darker palette that a lot of movies recently have, and some people think that's because they're trying to mask some CG. Some people just think it's a weird choice, but I think it might work. I mean, there might be something about doing a Neverland that feels a little bit more real and grounded that might really make this ultimately feel more magical. So I'm still like not quite sure. I think Jude Law's performance is really interesting. I like everything that I've seen. Seems interesting is the right word to me. Like, I'm not blown away by it. I'm not like, holy shit, this is my Peter Pan. This is the Peter Pan I've always wanted to see. But the choices are interesting enough, and it feels like they're doing their own thing that I'm kind of on board and excited to see what it's about.
Nice, Johnny.
Yeah, I loved it. I'm telling you. I mean, this may be the most excited I've been to see a Peter Pan since the Disney animated version. Honestly, I'm not the biggest Hook guy, even though there are some good moments in it. I haven't liked any other version of Peter Pan that they've done since, but this one looks like they are really putting an artistic approach to this story. They're not just trying to default to, okay, it's going to be for a bunch of kids. They're legitimately putting a lot of effort and energy to make it look more realistic, as you said, Michael. And I think that's intentional, obviously, because I think a lot of the new generation of kids who are watching this stuff, the world is a grittier place. The world is a harder, darker place. And you could argue, well, let's create escapism. Great. We've done that multiple times. Let's try something new where we understand that the world, even Neverland, has its darkness to it, which it does actually in the story. So we appeal to that a little bit more, make it more ground-based, make it more connectable. I like the actors they've chosen for all the roles. I mean, I think Jude Law is doing a wonderful job from the trailer I've seen with Hook. It's a nice Hook that I haven't seen quite before. And I like the actress playing Wendy. I think she carries a really strong power to her whenever she's experiencing it. And I just dig the overall look of this thing and the direction involved as well. So for me, I'm very pleasantly surprised at how much I might be excited to see this film when I finally get a chance to see it. So yeah, I'm down.
Well, Peter Pan and Wendy is going to be on Disney Plus in just 2 weeks.
Wow.
So bringing us to the from our streaming services back to the theater, we got the first trailer for Last Voyage of the Demeter. Now, this is a film that's been in development for a while, but I think as a concept, it's just so interesting. It's a Dracula story. There is a chapter in the book of, I think it's just called The Captain's Log, and it is literally this ship transporting Dracula from Romania to England. And the ship in the book, the ship shows up in London, everyone's gone or dead, and this is the story of what happens. And the cast for this is just, to me, this is just top notch. We've got Corey Hawkins, Liam Cunningham from Game of Thrones, David Dasmalchian. I thought this trailer looked really, really fun. Because it's been in development so long, it's sort of like, I hope they nailed it. But Universal is really leaning in hard to Dracula right now, with Renfield coming out today and Last Voyage of the Demeter coming out in August. But gentlemen, I'll throw it to you. Johnny, what did you think of our first look at The Last Voyage of the Demeter?
Dude, I was ready to throw this into the straight to DVD pile or straight to streaming pile, and then I watched the trailer. I was like, okay, this looks interesting. This looks fun. I like this. So for me, I come away from this trailer. I like the horror aspects of it all. I think Corey Hawkins is such a damn good actor. So great to make him the protagonist. Liam Cunningham, also the gritty, old dude, what's happening, all of this. And then seeing the progression of as the monster comes closer to showing up in the trailer, I think works really well. And I remember this sequence in Bram Stoker's Dracula, the Coppola one. It was pretty brutal as well. So to see it extended out into a long feature film gets me excited. This one feels like they weren't just making this on the cheap and then tossing it out there. This one actually feels like they're trying to impress some people with the stuff that they're doing. And look, Universal's been doing a nice job with this stuff lately. So I'm kind of enjoying it. I liked Renfield as a mini review. I'd absolutely recommend people go seeing it. It's a fun Saturday afternoon, go get food afterwards type of film. So I had a lot of fun with it and laughed all through it. So, if this is the angle they're going with, I think they're doing really good work. Remember the Dark Universe? Yeah, we kicked that out of here. We're just going to have fun with these monsters and see what we can do. So this feels like that as well.
Mikey, what'd you think?
I thought it was a great trailer. I think that there was that Netflix series, that Netflix Dracula series. It was like 3 episodes of Dracula, different things. And I think the middle one actually was basically this story. And it was really well done. But like this looks like expanding it out. It looks like it's Alien on a boat. And Dracula's the alien. Like that, it's great. Like it's just like, it looks super, super horror fun. And it's just ultimately whether you're like a Dracula, like if you are like a hardcore Dracula fan, as you guys said, like this is part of the story. Like this is absolutely, it's got its sort of bona fides. Like it makes like, hey, this isn't just like some crazy idea. Like this is straight from the original story.
Yeah.
But in its own right, it's just a great concept. You're stuck on a boat with a vampire. What the fuck are you going to do?
Yeah.
Like there's no, like you can't go anywhere. So you're good during the day. And then at night, shit's going to hit the fan. And it's just overall, it's a great horror concept. So I'm like, the trailer came out and I was kind of with John. I was like, okay, like, I guess we're doing another Dracula thing. And then I watched it and I was like, oh no, I'm for sure going to see this. This is like opening night, I'll be like, hey guys, who wants to go see this movie? Who's with me? Let's go check it out. Like I'm in.
Yeah, like I'm not generally a big horror movie fan, but anytime it's sort of the classics like this, I'm like, all right, yeah, I'm in for this. I mean, this just looks like a lot of fun, and it is going to be coming out August 11th, so at the end of the summer. And that brings us to our last trailer, our first look at The Marvels. This came out earlier this week and got a pretty polarizing reaction online. Personally, I thought, I'm like, this looks bright, this looks colorful, this looks fun. This looks like a fantastic showcase for Iman Vellani. And Brie Larson, Teyonah Parris, and Sam Jackson appear to be in it. Love the brief look at the cons that we got. We get to see the return of Goose. Again, another great moment with Iman Vellani.
Oh my God.
So yeah, I mean, it was a trailer. We'll see. I mean, but gentlemen, what did you all think? Mikey, our first look at the Marvels.
I had a blast. This trailer made me so happy. When we were reviewing Ms. Marvel and we talked about how great she is, but we also talked about how great her family is. And so just seeing her family in the trailer show up, a lot of fun. Honestly, like, I know that people are saying it's all Iman Vellani. Like, I think everybody looked like they were having a lot of fun. Like, Brie Larson actually looked like she was having more fun in the bits in this trailer that she's in than she looks like she was having in the entirety of Ms. Marvel. There's a tongue-in-cheekness to all of it. There's a silliness to all of it. Like, just even the core concept, even though the concept of like powers or something making you switch kind of goes back to Marvel and the original Marvel, like the idea of like switching places and stuff kind of has its roots in the Marvel comics, but kind of having the fun with it. It seems really cool. And it also, I think, very in a fun comedic way, handles the fact that that Captain Marvel is so super powered. Like, Captain Marvel is so powerful. Like, why would she need to team up with anybody? She's flying around blowing up Thanos' ships. But if every time you're using your power, you switch with somebody else and the three of you have to figure out your shit, I think that I'm into it. Also, just from a bigger MCU standpoint, loved that in the brief shot of the villain in the fight that we saw at the end, she's wearing a gauntlet. So it looks like, there's a lot of questions about Ms. Marvel's gauntlet. And when we were reviewing the Ms. Marvel series, it looked like it came off the hands of a Kree, possibly. Yeah. So now we're in the Marvels. We've got Krees as the villain, and we see another gauntlet. So I think, in the big mystery of the gauntlets and the 10 rings and how they tie into everything else that we're doing in the big multiverse arc, I think that this looks like it's the right balance of, it looks like it's going to have those Marvel connections, but even without those Marvel connections, it just looks like a really fun superhero romp in its own right.
Yeah, and it seems like the villain is a Kree person who's carrying Ronan's fucking hammer. So what's that connective tissue and all about.
Dar Ben is who I think she's supposed to be, which is yet another, much like Ronan, a Kree extremist.
Extremist, shall we say? Yeah. No, I loved this. This felt like old school sweet spot MCU, like right when it was getting into its understanding of how to balance the comedy with the action and make both work. And certainly the last few movies have been a bit uneven for most of us on the panel here, and maybe some of you fans watching or listening. So, but this one felt like this could be the one universally liked movie. Now, yes, have I seen some of the neckbeards going crazy about a film with 3 women in the lead and being directed by a woman?
Too many girls.
I get it. You got to feed the hate machine. I get it. Maybe there's some people who legitimately think it looks bad or not trying to cater to their fans and make money. But for me, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it from top to bottom. I think it's got really good direction beneath it. You can see Nia DaCosta understood the assignment. The idea of switching powers is really interesting too, because what is the thing that we've been trying to talk about over the last few years more prevalently in our society? Understanding other people's experience, right? You're having a Pakistani young girl, a Pakistani American young girl, you're having a black woman and a white woman. So they're switching at certain moments. We even have Brie Larson in the middle of some ceremony that Iman Vellani was in with her culture. So I like that idea as an element.
I think that's a planet.
Is that a planet? All right, fine. But but she shows up at her family, Iman Vellani's family's house. So like there's something to experience here for all of them to understand each other as they also figure out how to stop this situation from happening and switching powers, and then understanding each other's powers and learning how to come together as a team. And I love that thing near the end of the trailer where Kara's like, we're not a team. And she's like, oh my God, we're a team. You know, the enthusiasm. And I do think it's smart to focus on Iman Vellani in this trailer because not everybody watched Ms. Marvel. So you want to get her introduced. I think a lot of people watched WandaVision, but maybe not the same amount of people watch Ms. Marvel. So you want to introduce her and give her more time on screen. So it makes sense. You've already established Brie and Teyonah to a certain extent. So it makes more sense to give her a little more focus. The next trailer will probably be a lot more balanced with more Brie and more Teyonah in the clips. So yeah.
And just to that point about that dance sequence, there is in the Miss Marvel comics, Aladna is a planet, I believe, and it is a musical planet. It's a planet where everybody has to rhyme. It was like in one issue of Captain Marvel, but it is a planet where everybody's so like if we get our next big Marvel musical set piece in this movie, in addition to multiple Flurkins. Yeah. I mean, guys, what else do you want? Dude. Like, come on.
That Flurkin moment. Oh my God. It was brilliant. Fucking brilliant.
Rogers the Musical at Disneyland will close just in time for the Marvels musical to take its place.
I'm in.
Well, this one was delayed from July. Now it is going to be coming out November 10th of this year.
Yeah. All right. Is that the last of our trailer, Shannon?
That's it.
All right.
We made it.
Let's take a quick break. And we're going to jump into our Mandalorian. We'll answer some Streamlabs and Super Chats. We'll power through those and then jump into our Mandalorian review right after this.
That's when the Mandalorians get to the musical planet in the Marvels.
Yeah. Jesus, if that's next. Before we go on, there's 300 of you watching us right now. Thank you so much for joining us on this Friday morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you're watching us. We appreciate it badly. Please make sure to hit a like on this video and subscribe to the channel. You know, I've got this crazy idea to hit 50,000 subscribers by the end of the year. And I know it's still April and I'm getting close to 27, but please would appreciate you all subscribing to the channel down below. Be nice. And if you're watching later, leave a like and leave a comment as well as subscribing. We appreciate that too. All right, let's get into some of these Streamlabs and Super Chats real quick. Hey guys, Francisco Lopez says, hey guys, what's your thoughts on Mario Brothers and Air? Also, I hope Peaches gets nominated for Best Song. Fuck yes. Let me go first and say that as the one person who enjoys that damn movie on this panel. Hell yes. And I've watched that video like 6 or 7 times already. I love that song. Peaches, 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 Peaches. Anyway, all right, gentlemen. Air, Peaches, Air, Mario.
I think the Super Mario Brothers movie is a movie that exists and it is in theaters right now.
Oh,
I actually I think the movie is gorgeous. I think it's like a beautiful. It's a beautifully animated film.
Yes.
The score is spectacular and it hits all the nostalgia vibes. Like if you've ever played a Mario game in your life, watching it come to life is just, there's a thrill that goes with it. I don't think that there's a lot of story to the story or a lot of character to the characters. So I would have loved to have seen some more of that. But it's a fun time. It's a fun time that I wish was a great time.
My thought watching it was, hey, I guess every younger movie doesn't need to be complex. Not everyone needs to be Pixar. I did think it was visually stunning. None of the performances bothered me. I thought Jack Black was really, really funny.
Yeah.
I did laugh quite a bit. And this is not I was never a Mario player. I do think that having Chris Meledandri from Illumination as your boss is probably a dream, because there are so many moments and I'm like, why didn't you talk more about this? Why do you talk more about this? Why do you talk more about this? I think Chris Meledandri would be easier to write for than Michael Vogel.
Okay, there we go.
All right. Well, you know what?
I didn't say good. I said easier.
Maybe you should go call up Chris Meledandri for your next job, McClung.
I'm just glad McClung could pronounce his last name. Look, I liked Super Mario. I really enjoyed it much more than these two guys. I did like the story. I liked them as underdogs. I liked them having to fight through it. They needed to fight through, and then finding this kinship with each other at the end. I would have liked more Luigi and more Bowser, in my opinion. I would have liked that. I get to say my piece here, and I enjoyed. I think Anya Taylor-Joy gets better as the film goes along. Initially, I'm like, I just see you in front of a mic. And I didn't feel that about anybody else. But Fred Armisen's Kong, give me a whole film of the Kong universe. I want to see the Donkey Kong land in a whole separate film. Don't do that. I mean, it was great to see that kind of thing. So I enjoyed that. So, all right, let's keep going on through these. Remember, we got to power through these. So Mike Gallagher says, currently you get HBO Max for free. If you get HBO, I'd bet that's going away. Also, they quietly doubled the price of Discovery Plus. Oh, I didn't even notice that. Wow. Okay. All right.
Trixie.
Yeah, well, what do you expect? I'm Two Fly Cam says Dune Part 2, $700 million. Marvel, $680 million. Is that?
Yeah, they're going head to head.
Yeah. We'll see what happens.
They're coming out. Marvel's is going to do better than Dune 2.
Probably.
That's what I would think too.
Yeah. Jason Zay says, longtime listener and fan, and glad I finally had a chance to see you guys live. You all are great.
Hey,
thank you. I'm Two Fly Cam says, hey, Geek Buddies, Jafar was clearly hitting on Princess Jasmine. No. Anyways, I'm a numbers guy. What do you all think the box office future for Little Mermaid is? We did get recently a new trailer for that. So real quick, was Jafar hitting on Jasmine, or was that a ruse? And box office for Little Mermaid. Go ahead.
The only reason Jafar wanted to get with Jasmine is because he wanted to be Sultan. And as soon as he got his little, his genie, he didn't really need her anymore. Look, gay guys love to play dress up. He dressed Jasmine up in a very explicit outfit, and he was like, hey, look, fashion.
Right. Little Mermaid box office.
I think it's going to have a huge opening weekend, but I don't know if it's going to have legs.
Okay. Oh. See, you're becoming him. You are becoming him. Go ahead, Shannon. Thoughts real quick.
I mean, it looked like Jafar was into her, but I think she was also just kind of a pathway to power. In terms of the Little Mermaid's box office, I don't know. We'll see what people think of the movie. I mean, I think you have your loyal Disney fans who are absolutely going to go see it, and if it's good, hopefully it will have legs.
Jafar was stuck in a stringent society that judged him and didn't want his kind to be out in the open. So he wooed Jasmine as a ruse to get to power, but also to hide himself from his actual predilections. And the second thing is, I think it's going to make $1.5 billion. That's what I think. I think Little Mermaid, I think there is a untapped well of young girls that want to go see this film. They don't care that she's black. They just want to have a good time. I think she's going to be fantastic as Ursula, Melissa McCarthy. And so I think there's enough here that people are going to enjoy. I know everyone's going crazy about changing the lyrics, but these young kids don't know. A lot of them don't know the lyrics possibly. So it's going to be all new to them. So I think it's going to make 1.5 in my opinion. Tulip says, I love the Marvels trailer. However, the next day there were some thumbnails. I saw that it was the most downvoted MCU trailer ever. What a shock. I didn't watch the vids. Is this just about Brie or all female leads? What exactly is going on, do you think? I think we addressed that, but just overall, it's just people. It's no surprise that the majority of fandoms is led by dudes. Dudes are threatened by women, and so they're going to downturn or down like something, especially three powerful women who don't need men to be powerful, even though Nick Fury is there to kind of guide them or be a counsel. They don't need Nick Fury to do what they're doing. So I think some guys get intrinsically or primally offended by that shit.
No, and I think John's right too. I think it's about clicks. I think there is a significant group of people online right now that know that if a trailer with 3 women comes out, 2 women of color, that if they just go, woke police, why are they shoving this down our throat? They're going to get a bunch of views because everyone's like, yeah, that's right. And you're like, okay, just everybody calm down. Literally calm the fuck down.
Yeah, agreed. Let's see. Jim Fan says, Max sounds so erotic. Max. Dropping the HBO for Max just makes it confusing, in my opinion. The Penguin looks awesome. I'm meh on the Potter series. And why is the Marvels trailer getting so much hate? We talked about that already. We just addressed it. Thank you, Jim Fan. And he says, have a great weekend. Thank you so much.
Hey, thanks.
Yeah. Queen of Geek says, wondering on the HBOMax of it all, has Vogel heard any at all about Young Justice coming back to the channel, Michael? Have you heard anything? Can you say
I have not heard about Young Justice coming back to the channel anytime soon, but I did recently tell Greg Weisman that I would never count out any series he's worked on. Young Justice went away after season 2, and it took a few years for seasons 3 and 4 to come out. Yeah. And there is so much Young Justice love, and that show continually does so well that I wouldn't be surprised if, no matter what's happening with DC Animation and Max and everything else, I have a feeling that as long as Young Justice is on a streaming service, people will continue to find it, continue to binge it, and at some point, someone's going to be like, yeah, you should do another season of this thing.
Fair point. Gargoyles. Can we get it done?
I would do Gargoyles. Oh my God. I would love it. More Gargoyles.
Yeah. Come on. Get that done. Derek Johnson is going to miss the show, guys. Can't wait to watch it later. Thank you, Derek. Very
good to see you, Derek.
Yeah. And if you're watching later, Derek, hello from all of us. Francisco Lopez says, I hope my theory is wrong, but what do you think if we find out that Grogu is really a clone of Yoda or Yaddle and the Jedi Council didn't know, but Palpatine did?
No more. No clones. Stop it. Stop it. We already cloned Palpatine. He's somehow returned. I don't need, I'd rather Grogu was Yoda and Yaddle's baby. His mom Yaddle, his dad Yoda. Now that's the Grogu saga. That's what I want.
A love child he is.
Oh, sleep with you, I will. Stan Pempill says, Geek Buddies, this is the way. May the force be with all the Geek Buddies. Love what you do.
Thank you.
Thanks, Stan.
And thanks for giving us the perfect segue, Stan. Let's get into it. All right. I know we have a limited amount of time, so let's jump into it as much as we can. The Mandalorian, Chapter 23 here, Season 3, Episode 7, The Spies. The Spies, directed by Rick Famuyiwa, coming back from being a Jedi pilot now, jumping back behind the camera. Let's jump into it. Michael, overall thoughts on this episode, and are you ready to give me my flowers on the armor? Let's go.
Not quite ready, but worried I might have to. Worried I might have to row my little dinghy over to Hayward Island and pay you $20. We'll see. We'll see. I also think all those Mandalorians on that boat are not out of suspect either. How did you not know that there was an entire base under the ground? I don't trust you guys. I don't know what's going on. I thought this was great. I think, look, Mandalorian has been a wild ride this season, and that doesn't always mean a good thing. Yeah. I think, we've talked about it. I think it's kind of meandered a little bit more than a lot of us would have liked. But I think where they got to, at least for this episode, we'll see if they stick the landing next week. Yeah. It was a great episode. It was Star Wars. Kicking things off with a fan favorite from the Legends material off the bat. Setting up Thrawn in a major way, then going over into all what we thought this season was going to be, which is a bunch of Mandalorians going to Mandalore.
Yeah.
and having some great Grogu moments, some great Din Djarin moments, still like carrying this Bo-Katan story forward. And like, it just felt like everything kind of came together in a great way. And then we just got some awesome kick-ass Mandalorian action. So I thought this was a very, very satisfying episode. I wish that we had parsed some of this out over the course of the season in a little bit of a better way, but I was left feeling very Star Wars-y afterwards.
Yeah, interesting. And then, of course, you got emotional when all the Mandalorians walked onto the bridge of the Enterprise D. Shannon, your thoughts here overall on this episode? As Michael said, we get the Shadow Council, the introduction of a right-hand man of Thrawn, played by a certain somebody that we know from other projects as well. We get the Mandalorians coming together in an uneasy truce, a little fight over a chess match or whatever that game is called, that leads to them getting attacked by this dinosaur, the kind of creature, then getting back on the ground and fighting these Imperial jump troopers, leading to a trap set up by Gideon, taking the Mandalorian, but Bo-Katan using the Darksaber to get them out of there in time, and ending with the death of Paz Viszla. So what are your thoughts on all of this episode here before we jump into the nitty-gritty?
I think Rick Famuyiwa just crushed it. This was easily the best episode of the season. I love that Charles Parnell from Top Gun Maverick was one of the Mandalorians, maybe one of the Mandalorians down on the surface of the planet. That's the type of casting that I love to see, is someone that we do know that is recognizable, but isn't so known that it's difficult to kind of not see them as a person. I thought there were several shots that led me to think, oh, this Rocha thinks he's got this one in the bag. I still am not on that train. But this episode was a lot of fun. And again, we won't be able to really for sure say until the end of the season. But it's also the type of episode that there were bits of information doled out that I'm like, I would love to look at this season in a writer's room and be like, let's mix some stuff up. Because I feel like had some of this info been dropped a little earlier, I think the season would have felt less meandering and it would have been just a little more compelling. But as an episode of The Mandalorian, I think this was tops. Really, really good.
Yeah, I think this is the best episode of the season. For sure, maybe the best episode of the series, to be honest with you. It is incredible from top to bottom. I was throwing it out there. Rick Famuyiwa, though, should absolutely, I mean, everybody's been like, Bryce Dallas Howard, give her a movie, give Steph Green a movie, which I agree with, but give Rick Famuyiwa a movie, for God's sakes. He's done some incredible episodes of The Mandalorian through the first 3 seasons. All right, let's jump into this. We're going to do this as quickly as we can. Shannon, how much time do we have you with? Until 12 or a little bit after 12? What do we got here?
If we go to 12:15, it's fine.
Oh, okay. All right. Let's do this then. The episode opens with Elia Kane checking in with Moff Gideon in something out of a Blade Runner movie in a Coruscant alleyway. We see an Imperial probe droid. Nice connection to the original trilogy there. She updates him about the Mandalorians getting involved on Nevarro, which kind of shocks Gideon because he's like, those are 2 different factions. How are they possibly coming together? They're supposed to be fighting. He says he will handle it. Then we get to the Shadow Council. Gideon and all his glory and regalia walking into the red and black, walking amongst these troops that are standing by here. The Shadow Council was first introduced in the Aftermath books. For those who may not know this, Chuck Wendig's books, they're scheming to take back power from the New Republic. And they were dismantled after the Empire's defeat at the Battle of Jakku. Then we see the Shadow Council pop up when Gideon walks in. Captain Pelion, played by Xander Berkeley, who some of you know from a number of things here, 24, Barbed Wire, dare I say it. He is here as Grand Admiral Thrawn's right-hand man, and he was that character for the original 3-book series on Thrawn that was released there. And Pelion would later rise to the ranks of Supreme Commander of the Imperial Remnant and forging a fragile peace with the New Republic. But this, like Michael said, this basically teases that Thrawn is coming. We hear from a number of people that, Thrawn, we're getting ready. And we hear from a number of the council that are saying like, we got to pretend that we're a ragtag group. We can't really come together and do anything. And then we get Brendel Hux chiming in. That's right. Hux's dad is in this. And it is ironically played by Domhnall Gleeson's brother, Brian, rather. So, my brother, my father, we see that here in this situation with him playing the Commandant Hux. And he is initially resistant to help Gideon. And then Gideon kind of says, where's this Thrawn? We've been waiting for this Thrawn. You know, you told me Jesus was coming. It's been 300 years. I'm a little bit losing faith here. And so he says someone should step into the power vacuum. Gideon wants to take it. And it isn't until Gideon mentions the Mandalorians that all of a sudden the Shadow Council gets on board for giving him all the stuff that he needs here to defend himself. So very interesting stuff with this Shadow Council for sure. We hear about Project Necromancer, which is of course connected to the Imperial experiments to revive Palpatine. So that seems to be where they're kind of connecting the tissue here. Once again, Dave Filoni and not Favreau the first time around, but Dave Filoni connected project has to clean up stuff from a trilogy in Star Wars, just like he did in Clone Wars. He's doing that here with this season of The Mandalorian. And then we see here that the episode shifts to the Night Owls and Children of the Watch as they're landing on Nevarro and have this uncomfortable truce. The armor is the one that kind of gets them to calm down. Let's have a feast. Everybody get together. Then that night they're having the feast and they talk about plans for taking over Mandalore. So let's stop there. Mikey, your thoughts about how we intro this whole thing, the Shadow Council, Thrawn being mentioned, and Gideon taking power here, and the two Mandalorian factions coming together on Nevarro.
Yeah, I think so. Not mostly positive stuff, but I will just say that a lot of the stuff that's happening here that was really great would have been some information that would have been nicer to have earlier in the season. I think it would have helped people go along. So a lot of these warring factions, and we get this. We know that the Armor and her people and Bo-Katan and her people don't get along, but just the extreme of these guys are fighting. I hired the pirates. A lot of stuff that we inferred, but I think you could have like woven it out a little bit better. But all that being said, just great way to sort of actually feel like everything that's been going on really is coming to a head at this point. Like, great to see Moff Gideon back, reveal the Shadow Council. I have gone back recently because I've realized, especially with the Ahsoka trailer, that I haven't read Heir to the Empire, like any of those original Star Wars novels, since they came out when I was a kid. Yeah. And when you go listen, I'm listening to it on audiobook, the first word of the very first Star Wars novel is Captain Pelion. It's literally, that's the beginning of Star Wars novels. Yeah. So to see this guy all of a sudden pop up, knowing that Thrawn is coming, and just, it's interesting, a lot of interesting things about this scene. One, Moff Gideon kind of is like, hey, Project Necromancer team, cloning is your thing. I don't have anything to do with cloning. As we just watched him walk by a bunch of clones. Yeah. So what the fuck is Moff Gideon up to, first of all? Like, I think the inference that, well, like, we all sort of assumed that he was on team, let's get Grogu because we need midichlorians because we gotta clone Palpatine. But if Project Necromancer is happening over here with Hux's daddy, what is Moff Gideon really doing? Like, what is his secret plans within his plans? So I thought that was interesting. And just all of this talk of Thrawn and putting this thing, it really is like they're building Thrawn in a really great way that I think we're all pretty sure that Thrawn is going to be the big bad in Filoni's movie. Yeah. And kind of them doing their version of the Thrawn story from the Legends material is really exciting. Like taking sort of the Legends material, mixing it in what they've done with Thrawn in Star Wars Rebels. I just think that if you're a Star Wars fan, everything here just got you super, super jazzed. Yeah. And then look, getting back to Nevarro and seeing Bo-Katan and her Mandalorians show up with the Armorer and her covert, it was really, really great. Like, it was fun to finally go, this is what we thought this season was going to be. Look at all these Mandalorians that don't necessarily get along. Yeah. I will say, and I think, we're going to talk about it later, the really great scene with Bo-Katan and Din, where he sort of pledges his loyalty to her, would have been a lot better throughout this season if we had Din Djarin a little bit more conflicted about being one of the guys who's in the middle of all this. Like, as opposed to him sort of taking a step back, had he been really struggling with, I don't know quite where I fit, because like whatever, then when he did pledge his loyalty, and even here when they all show up, I think there could have been a little bit more going on. That being said, it was all awesome. Like, this is kind of what I wanted this season to be, and I was really excited to finally see it on screen.
Right on. Shannon, your thoughts on the introduction on Gideon coming back, Eli Kane once again being involved in this kind of stuff, which we had predicted, and then the Shadow Council, and then these Mandalorians achieving an uneasy truce because the armorer banged a couple of things together. What are your thoughts here?
The clandestine aspect to the Imperial remnants right now is something I love. Yeah. I love them having to sneak around and talk about how are we going to get back into power. You know, Katie O'Brien, you want to talk about, man, she got a lucky break when she got that role. When she had like a couple of lines and like, who could have known that she would, like, I think she's doing a really good job, but who could have known that playing this sort of, you know, nameless Imperial officer, you're suddenly a recurring character, a really important recurring character in the third season. Like that's something as a performer you love to see happen with folks. Yeah. You know, Giancarlo Esposito, boy, he is just chewing the scenery up here. He is just, he is John Kreese levels of evil from Karate Kid Part 1. It's so much fun to watch. All of the Shadow Council, like that whole thing, I think is just, it's so intriguing, and I wish we would have gotten to it sooner. Like, I wish we would have seen Gideon on that shuttle right before he breaks out. Like, I think saving him for the penultimate episode ultimately was probably not the best idea, because I don't know what it got you hiding him. Because it's like, okay, he's broken out. Like, let's just see it. But I did love the name checking of Thrawn, and I love the fact that, you know, Star Wars Celebration happened the weekend before, where it was confirmed that Lars Mikkelsen was going to play Thrawn, and then the next Star Wars thing we get a name check of Thrawn, which is just awesome. You know, going over to Nevarro, the shot from behind of the armorer watching that light cruiser come in with the Mythosaur insignia painted on the bottom. I'm like, that is a great Star Wars shot. And that was the moment I'm like, shit, is Johnny right on this? Because they did not turn the camera around and show her from the front. That's what made me think like, nope, she's not the spy. She's not the bad guy. She is walking the path right now. Watching the two sections of Mandalorians sort of confront each other, seeing how it is sort of kind of awkward, like, how is this going to work? I mean, Paz Vizsla, again, you don't need to see that actor's face to know what he's thinking in that moment.
Oh, yeah.
Again, like, you know, looking at the promotional material for like seeing all the different Mandalorians, again, this is another thing that it would have been great to have gotten to it sooner, so we can see this relationship build, and you see the kind of peaks and valleys that go along with it. And fully agree with Vogel. I mean, had Din Djarin been placed a little more in the center, if that had been fleshed out a little bit more, that moment where he verbally confirms to Bo-Katan that he is in her service, I think that would have landed a little harder.
I love the intro here. We've seen Blade Runner-esque influences in Star Wars recently. In the Kenobi series with Moses Ingram, when they go to that city and she's tracking down Kenobi, he's tracking down Leia. We see that in a number of places. So to see it pop up here is no surprise. It works so well here. But you're right, Shannon. I mean, Esposito is having the greatest time playing this character, and he is living his best life. And for those, I've never seen Breaking Bad except for the first season, so the Gus character for me is still something I haven't fully experienced as a viewer, but I can see shades of it in how he's playing Moff Gideon and the strength and the power that he has. And also, you all know this, casting is smart. None of those Shadow Council members look like they can go toe-to-toe with Gideon. None of them. So you elevate him even more by having him look like he's a little more capable than all of them, a little more ruthless, a little more criminal than all of them. Now, Pelion, we're going to see with Xander Berkeley, but we've also seen Xander Berkeley get, you know, need I bring up Air Force One? You know, we see him get beat all the time as a villain. So it's not an intimidating. They're not an imposing Shadow Council, but certainly what they're doing is terrifying. What they're doing is scary. And the smart play that they don't want to overplay their hand, and they want to seem like they're not that threatening, and, you know, we'll just let it go, a little crime over here while they slowly build up, makes so much sense of how the First Order will come to be down the road, because the New Republic was caught with their pants down. They were caught getting too soft or too spread too thin, and you couldn't see what was happening. So it's smart to have it that way. And you need someone who wants power like Gideon to step into it. Do I think Thrawn's going to force choke him and kill him? I kind of feel like he's going to, because Gideon's going to want that power, and he's going to question Thrawn, and Thrawn's going to ice him. And that's going to be how he replaces Gideon as the big baddie, as Michael said, overall, as we go forward.
I mean,
with the series of the movie. Yeah,
Thrawn ain't going to force choke anybody, but he'll fuck him up.
Oh, fair point. Yeah, right. He's not right. He doesn't have the force.
I do like, but it is fun to see. It is fun to see the Empire become the new rebels.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, interesting, right? Yeah. Ugh, I don't like that feeling, but yeah. And then, of course, seeing them all land there, the uneasy truce. Of course, one side sees them as, people, cavemen-like approach to their faith of the Mandalore, and the other side sees these highfalutin guys who think they know better about Mandalore than we do. So you're going to have an uneasy truce, but you need a strong energy to stop that from happening. The armor has that respect from both sides here, especially having Bo-Katan and Din Djarin as her seconds in SN and Paz Viszla as well, for that side kind of coming together here. So I like that we got that.
Axe calls him a primitive. He calls him a primitive.
Axe does. Axe always getting into shit. Axe. All right, let's take a quick break, and we'll keep going with the episode right after this.
Do 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 do.
That guy, I love it. All right, now they decide, as I said, they're making their plans. They're going to head over to Mandalore and take back Mandalore. But before they do, Greef Karga wants to give Din and Grogu something from him. And he gives Grogu an Azellan modeled IG-12. Well, shall I say Grogu kind of takes it from the Azellan, and he is now in control of what used to be IG-11, now IG-12, and he is like a toddler there with a new toy, the yes/no buttons, but he's understanding what people are saying. So very interesting to see that. I think that was hilarious to see them do that. And then from there, we also get this a whine from Greef Karga there for Mando saying, we should share this when you have a smaller party, if you know what I mean. So whatever that implies. But then we cut to them going to Mandalore. We see them in the drop ship. And then we see Paz looking down, and you can see how far down it is that they're dropping, which is pretty incredible. Looks like thousands of feet for sure. Then we see them land on the planet, start to kind of navigate this. And this is classic Star Wars, right? The wipe as they walk and stuff, all of that. You're feeling them on the planet. No one's saying anything. And then we hear this noise in the distance, and here come on this massive ship, something out of some great old school Pirates of the Caribbean movie. We see the ship show up here, and here are the remaining Night Owl survivors on that ship. They are there. They're so happy to see Bo-Katan. They have a conversation. They want to find out where the Great Forge is. And that one Mandalorian is like, yeah, I can even take you there. And as we're on that, and as we're going to there, with the moment that Michael brought up, we see Din Djarin pledge his allegiance to Lady Kryze, to Bo-Katan there, and saying that she is the leader because he doesn't want to run things, and so she's going to take things over. What does that mean? That he's pledging to her? Blah, blah, blah. Then we get a fight here between Paz and Axe, because Axe always got to get into shit about the game, and Axe says, these primitives coming up with their own way to play the game, and they get into a fight, and Bo-Katan cannot stop the fight. Neither can Din, because the rules are neither side get involved in, probably because you would start an all-out war on the ship, civil war on the ship between the Mandalorians. So who has to stop them just after we see them battle each other for a little bit? It's Grogu, of course, the mini Yoda there, stopping them, saying, with the no, and keeping them apart using IG-12's body parts, which I think is really cool as well. And Bo-Katan comments that, wow, you really taught him well. And he's like, I didn't teach him that shit. He's did it on his own. So certainly coming into his own more and more Grogu. And then we get this massive dinosaur that comes out of the ground there and attacks the ship and smashes the ship, forcing the Mandalorians underground. So let's stop there, because that underground stuff is going to be a lot to talk about. Gentlemen, Shannon, I'll go to you first. Your thoughts here, the Mandalorian, the drop zone, getting the IG-12 for Grogu, rather. I don't want to say baby, for Grogu, and then the battle on the ship, and then boom, having that ship destroyed by the dinosaurs and your suspicions about the Night Owl survivors. What are your thoughts here?
So I just love clever production design work and using IG-12 as a vehicle for Grogu. I'm like, that's really, really smart. I have mixed feelings about Grogu walking around in the robotic carcass of his former nursemaid, but I was like, that is really cool. And I thought the Anzellan moment where the bad baby.
No don't squeezy, no squeezy.
That, in a premiere that I was kind of lukewarm on, that was a moment that really made me laugh. So the fact that they were, that
Listen, one of the things about a live show and a lot of caffeine is you gotta take a break sometimes. So Shannon has a lot to say. He's gonna talk about Baby Grogu. He's gonna talk about Mandalore. I'm gonna be right back, guys.
All right.
I thought it was really clever, and the whole yes, no, yes. I was like, that's a lot of fun. And then the moment out with the fruit vendor. And you see Grogu not really grasping the concept of you have to pay for these, and and again, it was a very sitcom-y moment. But as they're walking away, and Din's saying, I'm not liking this. The whole council where they're trying to figure out who's gonna go to Mandalore, and no one steps forward, and naturally it's Din and Grogu, and you see the slow forming where it seems like everyone's gone. Everyone's gone. Okay, awesome. Them getting down onto the planet. Again, I feel like if this is something that had built up the back and forth between the two sections of Mandalorians, I feel like this is a moment that would have landed a little harder, because this is probably a very emotional moment for some of them, because they're going back to a planet that they thought was gone. They're going back home. The moment where you see that giant kind of skiff, I guess.
Yeah, skiff.
And
that's a good thing. Yeah.
You see the other Mandalorians, including Charles Parnell, and talking about what actually happened. Like we knew you would never, you wouldn't leave us to die, or however they put it. And you see where she basically admits, like, look, I surrendered.
Yeah.
Because this is what was in front of us. If I didn't surrender, they said they were going to, demolish everything, which it seems like they tried to do, even if they didn't succeed. Them getting on the skiff, and you see the between Paz and Axe. Feel better?
Please continue. Please continue.
That moment between Paz and Axe. Even though Axe kind of a dick, Paz also trying to cheat. When he's just like, all right, are we doing this? And Axe's whole thing, like, really? We're gonna fight over this? Like, submit or fight. And it's like, okay, this is a window into their culture. And the fact that neither one of them, they both get the upper hand at some point, and neither one of them are going to stop. And it takes Grogu, like, him interfering, like, Din admits that wasn't from him. Was that from Luke, or was that Grogu? Was that Grogu?
Yeah, the Luke training. Great point. Yeah.
Was that Grogu coming into his own? So, I mean, I thought this whole section was really, really nice. And it makes me, at the time of watching the episode, it's making me trust Axe less and less.
Oh, really? You think? Okay, Michael, your thoughts on this section here of the show?
Grogu getting an IG-12 is the best thing that has happened to Grogu in a long time. That was just some great comedy. Like the yes no bit, like get him out of there. No. Oh no, I think he likes it. Yes. Yes. It was great. And yeah, Shannon's right. The whole bit with the fruit vendor, a little bit sitcom-y, but it all worked.
Yeah.
I mean, it was fun. And I think sometimes we forget this when we all talk about Star Wars, that we love the epic, we love the dark, we love this big epic mythological storytelling, but we also like R2-D2 being a little bitch. Like we also, there's a lot of real fun comic bits in Star Wars that when it came out in 77 made it feel different than all the other sci-fi movies that were taking themselves seriously. So seeing Grogu just do this whole great bit in this little thing, you're like, all right, like if this is part of the evolution of Grogu, and now he's going to be in the droid and he's going to run around, and he's going to have a little bit more action going on, like I'm super on board with it, and it all played really, really, really fun. Yeah, I agree with what Shannon said while I was indisposed. I think that seeing all the Mandalorians come together, Bo-Katan giving her big speech, Mando and Grogu being the first to step up, it all worked. It was great. But had there been a little bit more question about where Din was going to fit in with all this, had he like butted heads with Bo-Katan a little bit more throughout the season, I think it would have been stronger. That being said, it was exactly the right choice, and it all played really, really well. And I love the drop zone moment. It made me feel like I was watching Aliens, watching all those soldiers and aliens kind of drop down on the planet. But I think, you know, again, to Shannon's point, a lot of the interplay between the two different sects of Mandalorians, everything in this episode was right. And had you sort of built up to it a little bit more, it would have been even stronger. But just this whole, like, I can't believe it looks like that. I was here when it happened. Like, really diving into the fact that there's all these different factions of Mandalorians, and they've been so scattered because of this ultimate tragedy of what happened to their planet. I think was really, really strong. And I think one thing we didn't say about the scene at the beginning with Moff Gideon is this idea that, you know, he wasn't going to get the ships and everything that he was asking for until he said the Mandalorians are coming back together. Yeah. And this idea that the Mandalorians all sort of coming together as a people and reclaiming their planet is actually a big threat to what the Empire or the remnants of the Empire is trying to do, I think is a really important thing that I feel like should have been underscored more throughout the season, because it makes what's going on Mandalore and what's going on with Bo-Katan really important to the bigger story of the First Order. You know what I mean? Like, I think there's a lot of really interesting stuff at play there.
Well, look, if you're going to be in charge of anything, and you know that there's a group of people or a planet that's going to resist you being in charge of something, you want to make them an example out of them. And certainly using the power of the Empire to do that, to blunt the sword of the Mandalorians and to blunt the resistance of the Mandalorians makes sense. Also, it's not out of the realm of possibilities. We've seen in real life, in real situations, that a power structure goes into a section of the citizenry and makes them turn on each other and wants to keep them separated, because, as Bo-Katan says, if we come together, we're unbeatable. We've allowed ourselves to be separated by a power that blew us up, destroyed us, bombed the planet, made us turn on each other, and wants us to keep us at war with each other. And as you mentioned earlier, Michael, Moff Gideon says these are two factions. They're not supposed to be with each other. They're not supposed to like each other. That was intentional by the Empire. Just like any power sometimes intentionally creates division within a community so that they can't come together to focus their energies at that overriding power. So to see that here played out in a subtle way, I think was really great to see. The stuff on the skiff was so fantastic. Give you a microcosm, a window into the culture, my little microcosm of the culture of Mandalore, what happens with these Mandalorians over a game, but that happens. You know what I'm saying? And so having Yoda come in, and someone made a great comment, I can't who said this, maybe his experience from Order 66 makes him like not want to see any fighting, not want to see any kind of these negative things going on between people who are supposed to be together. And so maybe that's kind of a thing for him, that a trigger for him. That's where he wants to stop it. But yeah, the armorer taking off with the wounded on the skiff to go to the fleet. Come on, man. That is the toll booth operator closing the door before Sonny is killed. That is absolutely Robert the Bruce. That is someone getting out of the way right before we're about to jump into going underground.
There's two versions to this. I'm gonna point now. You're not wrong, because as soon as the armorer was like, well, I'm gonna take now. First of all, just to be really clear, I don't trust those bitches on the boat.
You don't trust the former Night Owls on the boat.
I don't trust the former Night Owls because, again, they've ostensibly been on Mandalore this whole time surviving.
Right.
And Moff Gideon has built a giant underground base.
Yeah.
And they literally take them to the underground base. I get that's where the forge is. I get it. But like, did you really not know that? Like they're high on the suspect list. Now the armorer saying, hey, I'm gonna go.
Yeah.
Definitely made me go, God damn it, I hate it when Rocha gets to lord shit over me.
With these, I wouldn't lord shit if you guys were like, oh, Rocha, you're so off base. You're so wrong here. But then, I get to lord it when I'm right.
Listen.
Yeah.
If it walks like a duck and it talks like a duck.
You know what? Yeah.
But the other option and the other thing that could be happening here is we're about in classic Star Wars sense, this final episode might be like a battle on multiple fronts. So like with Return of the Jedi, the whole third act is Luke and Emperor and Vader on the Death Star, Lando and Akbar and the fleet trying to get into the Death Star, and Han and everybody on the planet on Endor with the Ewoks trying to get into the base to take the shield down. There's multiple things going on. Yeah. So you've got the ship up here, and we maybe want the armorer so that we have one of our main characters up there to be leading the fight up at the top while Bo-Katan and everybody are rescuing Mando down here. So she could still be a hero. She could still pull through and be a hero here, but we will see next week.
She was part of Death Watch. Shannon?
Death Watch is no more.
That's what she said. Yeah.
Maybe.
Who is the one who has a legitimate axe to grind? It's Axe. He's getting his butt whooped. He got supplanted. He is the one. He's the one. I think Axe is the guy.
But that's
I think
go ahead.
Axe going up, like how he is going to use a jetpack. Well, I mean, I guess he used that just to get out, and he was going to take a ship back up. But I think I think on the carrier, on the light cruiser, it's going to be the armorer versus Axe and the Imperials.
So you think Axe is but that's such a boring turn. Axe has been such a boring character. It doesn't carry weight. The armorer turning, that's a bigger narrative turn than someone who's 25th on the call sheet turning. It's be mad at me if you want. All right, let's take a break real quick.
I'm mad at you.
No, I'm saying people watching, not you. Let's take a break, and we'll jump into the last half of the episode here as we got a final 20 minutes left of the show right after this.
Do 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 do. It's Axe. Do 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 do. It's Axe. Do do do.
That would be so boring. All right. Anyway, as Villanelle might say, boring. All right. Let's see. And then we get this showdown here as they're running down underground here. We get the showdown with the Mandalorians against these Imperial jump troopers, and of course, before that happens, as the guys mentioned, they provide Paz Viszla provides cover for Axe to fly on out of there to get help for them there underneath. And as we just mentioned, the armor has taken off with some injured Mandalorians to take them up to the fleet.
Well, they're for sure injured. They're for sure injured.
Injured Mandalorians. I don't know.
Just because you put a word in quotes.
I'm just throwing it out there. All of a sudden, they're going to be recovered in time to attack that fleet, the unsuspecting fleet. Anyway, the jump troopers is pretty badass to see them in live action with the jetpacks, and they're wearing Beskar armor. They seem to be the next evolution of Gideon's Dark Trooper, right? It feels like Imperial Super Commandos, even from Rebels. So, and then we see them fighting there back and forth, and we see my man Paz pulling out the 50 cal and laying people to waste Predator style with his ability to Schwarzenegger style, and they all run even deeper underneath after they take care of business there with those Imperial jump troopers. If it gets a little bit overwhelming, they run underneath to try to get to better ground, and they run right into a trap that's set up by Moff Gideon. They come in, it's a TIE fighter hangar, and they're like, what the hell is going on? All of a sudden, these doors come down. It's Mandalorian all by himself, and these troopers come out, and they take care. They eventually subdue him, and then Gideon shows himself, and like a proud man showing off his new suit, just walks around saying, do you see? Look at this, Bess. Look at his new suit. You dig it? You dig it? I got my thoughts on Gideon as well. Anyway, his new armor is a bit overkill. He's wearing this Dark Trooper armor reinforced with Beskar metal. Who makes Beskar armor? Anyway, we see that with him in the Mandalorian style helmet that has horns in it. Whose other helmet has horns in it but the armorers? And then he says, Mandalor will live on in me. And then eventually Bo-Katan is revealed to be part of those Mandalorians that's there. And he says very cruelly, we have to stop meeting like this. essentially implying I'm always winning, you're always losing, and I'm taking over your planet from you here. But you see him clearly and he says, "Give me the Darksaber." They subdue Mando. They take Mando away. Bo-Katan says, "Fuck that," tells the Mandalorians to shoot, and they start shooting at the door while she cuts a hole in the door with the Darksaber in the back there. The Mandalorians stream out, and then Paz Viszla provides them cover so they can get out of there. The doors open, and Paz Viszla stays behind. Bo tries to get him out. Grogu's there as well, taking off with the AG-12. He says no, closes the door, so he's by himself with these troopers and with Gideon. Gideon takes off because he's going to waste his time killing Paz Viszla. Paz Viszla fights off all those troopers, and then we get those 3 Praetorian guards that walk in, and they eventually subdue poor Paz, and that is the end of Paz and the end of the episode. So, Michael, thoughts overall? What happened here? Imperial jump troopers, dark troopers, Beskar armor, and Bo-Katan leading her people out, and Paz Viszla dying.
My thoughts are, I love that you think Axe is a boring, obvious choice, but you think the armor is bad because she and Moff Gideon have matching hats.
Well, no. I say Axe hasn't been established enough for a turn to be like, oh my God. The armor is a way bigger narrative turn than Axe. Axe is like, okay, fine, it's Axe. It wouldn't.
I mean, okay, you've got a point there, but
yeah.
Backing up really quick, because I think I kind of in my running around to deal with myself, we kind of skipped over it. But like, I do just want to go back to the Bo and Din moment on the boat, just because I do think that, it was a eloquent speech. I just think that, again, this moment when Din sort of says to Bo-Katan and leading into all of the action that comes after it, because kind of the moment that he pledges to her and says, look, my people don't give a shit about this Darksaber. Like, we don't care about the Darksaber. We don't care about this. Like, we care about honor. We care about loyalty. We care about these things. And you've got it. And I just think it's great because in the bigger story of Bo-Katan, I mean, this is someone who has made a lot of rough choices and already tried to do this once, tried to bring all of Mandalore together and fight the Empire and just got whooped hard. Yeah. So when and Katie Sackhoff has been on this journey the whole time. And so like everything he says to her in this moment about how like you really are the person and your story is not yet written. And I want to be here, like I just thought sometimes Star Wars, the dialogue is just like, it's perfunctory. It's getting you to the next big, awesome thing. And I do think that the speech he gives here is just, it's going to go down as a great Star Wars speech. So I wanted to give it its due moment. Look,
well, that's I think what once you do when you're going to hand over the series to someone else, you give them a great speech and you pledge loyalty to them. That's what you do.
Yeah. I mean, look, I do. And look, they've all come out and said that the title Mandalorian is bigger than just Din at this point. And I think that's clear. And I think I'm super okay with that. Like, I just think that he's still our character that has led us this far. And until you have the actual handoff, let's make sure we keep him sort of central. But I think that they did a great job of that with everything in the back half of this episode. I think that the action and, Shannon speaks to this better than I do, but like the action was just all so well done. Every character had their Axe, whether Axe was flying off to betray everybody or not, like him getting his big moment where he flies off and Paz is just like kind of giving him the cover and Bo is kicking ass and Din's doing like everyone, it was when you have a bunch of characters who all basically look the same, the fact that you can sort of track everything that's happening here and you kind of know who's doing what when, it was just really, really, really well done. And then even though we all kind of were sitting at home as Admiral Akbar's yelling that this was a trap, like it was pretty clear, it worked really nicely. It was a lot of fun. Moff Gideon chewed up all that scenery. And then loving that Bo-Katan, pulled a classic Jedi move. She might not be a Jedi, but she's got a lightsaber and like just slicing through that thing to get out. All just really, really fun. Really worried about Din. Really curious about what's going to happen next with him. But who knew that we were all going to feel the way we did about Paz Viszla?
I mean, yeah.
Like, of all the conversations we've had and all the moments we've had, they really did. We've talked a lot about the things that they could have sort of set up better throughout the season. Yeah. But he's been pretty constant and he's been pretty good. As like if you watched Book of Boba, which they should have let us all know that we had to, but like starting with the confrontation that he had with Din, where he sort of challenged him for the Darksaber, to sort of being on Din's side when Din's like, let's go help Nevarro. Just all of these moments throughout. Even the fight that he had on the ship, like, just who this guy was, the fact that at the end he was like, everybody get out, I've got this. And then just this extended scene with him just like taking everybody out. His gun overheats. He throws the gun out. He's throwing himself against these guys, knocking them off the thing. Like, it was a great battle, and then a great reveal for these Praetorian guards.
Yeah.
Who came out and just it both made him look great as a hero, as this ultimate sacrifice moment, but in the ultimate sacrifice moment also made those Praetorian guards look like absolute badasses.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you could argue, Mike, it elevated the throne room scene even more in The Last Jedi. But they were able to take him out. Yeah.
No, so I think, and again, just great framing up of action and great moving these pieces around, because now going into this final episode, all right, Moff Gideon's got Din. Bo and the others escaped. What are they going to do down on the planet? Axe has gone off to ostensibly get help. The armorer has taken the injured back up to the ship. And so now getting into this,
I feel better.
So now getting into this final episode, it's great because there's no setup. Yeah. Like, the setup has happened, and now, like, let's just get in there and have like a fucking rock rolling Star Wars action third act set piece. So I'm excited. I really want Grogu to give us some major force powers. A part of me really wanted Grogu to sort of force push a bunch of people back in this episode, but it would have taken away from Paz's sacrifice in his ultimate moment. But I want Grogu to like use some force powers to go save Daddy.
Yeah, those injured Mandalorians are going to be like Eddie Murphy in Trading Places when they lift up his car. My legs! I can feel my leg. Shannon, your thoughts on this, on the action sequences here and what we're leading to into the last episode of this season?
It's funny that you went Trading Places. I went Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Then they're all going to Grandpa Joe.
Golden ticket, you say?
Getting the Mandalorians, even though like some of them, are from there, used to live there, but getting them on sort of unfamiliar territory, and you see the troopers come in, kind of get the jump on them, even though it is sort of a surprise attack. You get to see the effectiveness of the Mandalorians, that even though they're on unfamiliar ground, and it's a surprise attack, they ultimately they're such good warriors that they ultimately get the upper hand. And as they are pursuing, as you are wont to do, because that's what happens in a fight scene, is like, we've got some ground, let's exploit it. And as Vogel said, like, we all knew we didn't know how they were going to get trapped, but we knew they were going to get trapped. And you see those doors come down and separate them. It was just the fact that Din is there with like 3 other Mandalorians, and they're quickly dispatched, and you see the jump troopers using those cables the way that the Mandalorians have, and kind of tying them up. It was just so exciting and so much fun. And Paz Viszla, I mean, what we've gotten from him this season has been great, and I think it could have been better. I think they could have done more, but whenever he lands with that giant kind of 50 cal blaster, it's just, again, as an audience, just so cathartic. Like, yes, the cavalry, the one Mandalorian cavalry is here. And you just see him laying waste to people. Yes, I thought it was really, really funny that, so you took it as horns. I took it as a crown that Moff Gideon with his helmet. I mean, to me, that was like there was just a lot of swagger as he's walking in, like, this is the next generation of Dark Trooper. And the thing that makes it better is I'm inside. Like, it just, the ego is just fantastic. And it's what's going to make his fall all the more satisfying, whether it's at the hands of Grogu or the Mandalorians, or probably Thrawn.
Yeah, I think Thrawn is smacking this bitch down hard.
Oh yeah. There's only room for one ego when Thrawn is in the room, and it's Thrawn's. Yeah.
It was just such a satisfying sequence. and then watch like the folks in the chat that are saying Bo's the traitor. I'm like, I don't see it.
No.
But watching Paz's sacrifice, and again, like I don't feel like we've ever seen it in Star Wars. I know we've seen it in other media, but watching that 50 cal overheat to the point that it looks like it's about to melt, and you see him just kind of use it as a projectile. See how strong this dude is. Like it's just so satisfying. And then like when the Praetorian Guard came in, I thought it was Moff Gideon at first, because you see like kind of the cape, I think, and I'm like, oh, he came back, and I'm like, oh, that's right, you talked about that at the beginning. Like that was just a really, really satisfying sequence. I am legit excited for the finale in a way that I have not been excited this season. So, I mean, action-wise, again, from you and the rest of the creative team, they knocked this one out of the park.
Yeah, I can't add anything more to what you guys have said, but there are clues here that maybe this is the end of the Mandalorian. If it is, they killing off Favreau's character, giving him a hero's death. Maybe Favreau moves off this thing. Having Grogu riding in Bo-Katan's lap in the episode, that's really interesting. And so, and she even said, right, in the first or second episode, what, you think your dad's the only Mandalorian? So there's something possibly we may see the end of Din Djarin at some point. Certainly the person who plays him in the physical body when Pedro's not on set has said that people are going to be a little down or sad about the ending of this season. So we shall see what happens next week, but I'm looking forward to it. I know we have 6 minutes left, so let's power through these Streamlabs and Super Chats real quick. Alan Smithy says, morning, Geek Buddies. Love the Ahsoka trailer. This is the show with all the aliens, Togruta, Twi'lek, and whatever Thrawn is. Do you think that Zeb is not featured because he's CGI and too expensive to be a prime character? And will we get Hondo next week? Thanks. Okay.
So Thrawn is a Chiss, right? I believe he's a Chiss. Look, we already saw they built Zeb in CG, and like I said when we reviewed that episode of The Mandalorian, you don't build that Zeb in CG for a 2-second cameo. So I am pretty sure we are going to see him show up in Ahsoka. And then I hope we see Hondo, because I love seeing him every time I go to Galaxy's Edge, but he is my go-to pirate, and I love him dearly.
Mikey!
Yeah, I would say Zeb definitely in the show. I think whatever sequences that Zeb is in probably we're not ready for a trailer, but he's definitely going to be in the show.
Yeah, I think Zeb's going to be in the finale next week. I absolutely think Zeb's going to appear in some way or format. Yes. And Hondo, I would love Hondo, of course. Beto Powers says, do you think Disney is to blame for this season or Favreau? Grogu is just used as a prop now. He doesn't seem real anymore. Love the ending though. Yeah, go ahead. What do you guys want to say?
Yeah, I don't think. Look, for better or for worse, I think the choices made in Mandalorian is a successful enough show that I think that I don't think Disney is in there telling them what to do. I think that they're getting to do what they want to do. They made the decision to sort of set the chess pieces the way they set the chess pieces this season. So we did a whole episode over here on Coruscant with Pershing. We did a whole episode over here. We did a whole episode with Lizzo and Jack Black, and that was the way they decided to go about it.
Yeah.
And there was some fun stuff in there. There was some bad stuff in there. I've already said that I think they sort of sidelined Mando and Grogu in the middle of the season in a way that I didn't love. But I do think in this last episode, both Mando and Grogu got a lot of really fun stuff. And so, look, if we get back on track, I'm feeling good about it. And I do think somebody said this earlier in the chat. I'll be curious. I think this season might smooth itself out a little bit on a rewatch.
Possibly, yeah. I know Jeff on the hot mic has reported there were issues here, that Kathleen was the one that made Favreau put the reunion of Grogu and Mando in Boba Fett. We don't know 100% what the truth is behind that, but maybe. And so I would say, overall, there's enough blame to go around for everybody, possibly, if we want to do blame games. Bronson Wright Rolf says, Daniel Radcliffe, who plays Harry Potter, thanks for telling us, was on an episode of Conan back in 2014. He revealed that he crashed the Star Wars Episode 7 set. Oh, that's cool. Okay.
I wish he had been in it. I wish he had been in it somewhere.
Yeah.
The boy who lived on Jakku.
One last one. Ryan says, I want to be excited about the 3 new Star Wars movies announced, especially for Filoni to get a film. But until Kennedy has gone from Lucasfilm, I just can't be. She is fucked with too many projects, especially with Snyder's report confirming her meddling. Well, it doesn't 100% confirm it. It just implies that that's what he's been hearing from sources there within Lucasfilm. So, yeah, I mean, look, you can argue about Kathleen Kennedy all you want, but the franchise has made $6 billion under her watch, and so she deserves credit. Are there some things she's messed up on? Yeah, but other things, I think she's made the right move in replacing certain directors or replacing certain situations. So, you can argue one way or another about it. I think we won't know until she's completely done with her tenure how to analyze it just yet. But, some people just have an issue about her being a part of this and having issues with some decisions that she's made. What do you guys think real quick?
I will get excited for the new Star Wars films when they are actually shooting. That's I am withholding my enthusiasm until that point.
Okay, Mike.
I am excited for these films. As I said, I feel like there's a lot more there than there's been in the past. I am into it. I also think that given on the Kathleen Kennedy front, but also in this front, the big issue with Star Wars movies is that George Lucas always felt like Star Wars movies needed to be auteur films. So writer-directors, and they got to do what they wanted to do. They didn't have a whole bunch and they got to tell the story they wanted to tell. Yeah. And although I know that she has jumped in, whether it be Solo or Rogue One, and kind of said, oh, well, this is not the story you should be telling. That was the issue with the sequel trilogy, is that you had individuals telling their movies. So I do think the fact that these 3 movies take place in 3 different time periods, but we know what they are, like, it just feels like it's a better setup, not only for the directors who are telling these stories, but for the way that Kathleen Kennedy produces. John's right. Until Kathleen Kennedy's gone and somebody else steps in, we won't fully be able to examine how she did. But when you're looking at people's careers in Hollywood and the movies and the franchises and the things that they've given us, she's had a pretty good run. I wouldn't. I'm definitely not someone who's going to throw Kathleen Kennedy under the bus anytime soon.
Okay, I agree. Real quick, Thrawn, yes or no? Real quick, yes or no? Next week, do we see it, Thrawn?
I hope so.
I think maybe.
Yeah,
I hope so.
I think we do see him, because only the extended trailer that was shown at Star Wars Celebration in the panel showed his face. They didn't release that trailer for the public. It's leaked, but they didn't release it. So I think they did that on purpose so that we would see his face, all of us together, on screen next week. So I think that's going to happen for sure. All right, there you go. Thank you all so much for watching this episode of the Geek Buddies, and for watching this review, this spoiler review of The Mandalorian. Shannon, what do we have to tell them?
Yeah, I'd like to follow us on social media. On Twitter, it's @geek_buddies. On Instagram, @the_geek_buddies. If you'd like to follow me on social media, on Twitter, it's @Shannon_McClung. On Instagram, @Shannon the Geek Buddy. If you would like to follow Mr. Vogel, it is @MKToon. If you would like to follow Mr. Rocha, it is @The Says.
Mikey?
If you guys enjoy the Geek Buddies and want to help us continue doing what we do, here is how you can help us out. Smash that like button below, subscribe to Johnny's Outlaw Nation page, check out all the amazing content he's got there. Leave your comments below. Let us know what you think of literally everything we talked about here. It was a whole lot, so there should be a whole lot of comments right down there. If you're listening to us on podcasts, go ahead and leave us some stars and some comments so we go up in the rankings and more people can find us. And as always, the best thing that you can do is retweet this video, post it on your socials, send it to your friends, and tell them to hang out with your buddies, the Geek Buddies.
There you go. And one last super chat real quick from Annabelle Roman. Another Chef Kiss stream. Happy weekend all. And don't mind the caps. It just looks clearer to read. Agreed.
It sure does.
Happy weekend to you all. Thanks for joining us again. Take care of yourselves, and we'll talk to you next time with another brand new episode of the
Geek
Buddies.